Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Mayor Pro Tem Forrester, my fellow commissioners, Manager Bruce Swingle, Clerk Angela Torres, all the city employees, I'd like to welcome everyone here today. Today is a special meeting workshop. It is Monday, August 9th already. The time is 9 a.m. I will call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Honorable Sandra Whitehead.
Here.
Honorable Amanda Forster.
Here.
Honorable Paul Walker.
Here.
Honorable Randall Erica.
I'm here.
Can we have a different name?
Honorable Francis Lennon. Here. Madam Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you. The next item on our
And you
agenda.
copied.
The next item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you all please join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The next item is the approval of the agenda.
Madam Mayor, make a motion, we approve.
Commissioner Barco, second it.
I have a motion made by Commissioner Luna and seconded by Commissioner Baca to approve the agenda for Monday, August 9th, 2021, special meeting and workshop. Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Honorable Sandra Whitehead.
Yes.
Honorable Amanda Forster.
Aye.
Honorable Paul Walker.
Aye.
Honorable Randall Erica.
Aye.
Honorable Francis Lennon. Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. The next item is item C, workshop. Workshop regarding the City of Truth or Consequences budget finance. I will now turn this meeting over to our city manager, Bruce Swingle.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners. Welcome all here today. Very much appreciate the Commission taking the time to hear this presentation, have a workshop discussing budget, expenditures, and revenue sources. Almost from the time I started with the city, it was real clear that there was a revenue stream problem. And when you look at the revenues that the city has and the expenditures of the budget, there's no question, we really relied on the enterprise funds to complement the general fund, provide funding for the general fund offices and services. I think through the totality of the day, we're going to look at a lot of different issues, whether they be revenue shortages or operations and services that we're providing, GRTs and property taxes and so on, and then probably look at other ways to grow the revenue stream, such as city real estate, city property that we have, user fees, and other city services that we're providing to non-city entities. Pretty reduced, but certainly in most cases it's costing us money as a city to provide services to some of these other entities, and we'll cover some of that. We'll get right into it with the kind of the revenues, the expenses, and the transfers. Overview. You've heard this in the past in one manner or another. I'll defer to Carol.
Madam Mayor, is there any department that is not here represented today? It looks like everybody's there.
Who?
Who? But Crystal is admin. Okay, but the municipal court, I don't see anyone representing them.
They asked if they absolutely had to be there, so we don't have to be.
Well, Madam Mayor, if I might, during our budget process, they were the only one who did not present to us, and we had them come and present to us during our open meeting. And I feel like they never got the totality of our budget problem. And so I will go on the record saying I wish there was a representative from the court here.
I support that. Also.
It was perfectly made clear to us by Judge Sanders that her money was her money and she was going
Right.
to do whatever she wanted to with it, and we weren't to tell her anything. And I feel that she needs to sit here and hear the cuts and the struggles that everyone else is making, and she needs to come to the table as well. So I don't know if someone here has a connection and can ask at least her chief deputy or her assistant to make her way here, but I would greatly appreciate it.
May I say something, Mayor? What about the fire department? I know it's volunteer and it's under Ryan, no, under the chief, Patuli. But there's budgetary stuff there too, right?
Their funds are, yeah, their funds are.
Their funds are not-
No,
But we do give general dollar funds to the municipal court.
correct.
Okay.
Along that line, like Rogers Tax has not been invited either because their revenue is, they have to work within the revenue, same as the fire department. Whatever revenue they get, they
Mhm.
pay for Rogers Tax from us, that's what they adopt.
Maybe we get the judge or a representative later on, possibly.
Thank you, Commissioner Luna, for bringing that to the attention of the commission. I thought today this meeting was for all department heads, which included the municipal court, because again, we're all here together, and so we all need to look out for each other and know what one office and what one department is suffering against what the other is doing.
Mhm.
And so I would like to see if maybe the judge or a representative could come at some time during the day to kind of give us an idea of what happens in her office.
Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, they're calling.
Thank you.
Courts now to see if they can come.
Thank you.
We have an unusual relationship with the court.
Yeah.
And frankly, I don't fully understand it at this point. They use city funds for their operation, however, they do not answer to the city. We had personnel issues there that they were dealing with, and we were actually excluded from the process and had to take it from the attorney that they're separate from us. And that's, so,
It was crystal clear what the judge said about, we cannot interfere with adjudication operations, but budgetary and administratively, it's like the sheriff's department, the same kind of relationship. They're elected, but there's,
I think the city, because the city funds go on to the city commission.
right.
And I think personnel, any liability exposure, it's on the city, it's not
Right.
on the court.
Okay, thank you. Let's go ahead and get started with our meeting, as it's going to be an all-day item.
Okay, everybody knows me, I live in spreadsheet world and handouts, Mr. Bucket. What we're trying to do, and I know it's a lot of information in a small space, but I wanted to get our major funds, so you won't see any of our capital funds or debt service. These are our major operating funds, starting with the general fund. And what I've done is I've taken the revenue from 16-17 to our projected 21-22, minus our expenses, and that's gonna leave us in net. And you'll notice in the general fund, it's negative all the way down. I've added some analytical notes.
You're on the big one?
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry, I'm on the big one. I've added some notes on there, and Mr. Swingle probably wants to add a few himself. But what I mainly noticed is, then we have cash out to other funds. The general fund supports the golf course, the airports, of course, the municipal courts, our corrections department, and a few other funds that we send out, we share our revenue cash with. So after we do that, we're even more negative, and then we have to get transfers in from other funds, generally the utility departments. We do get some of the lodger's tax, and we no longer have PD gross receipts to go through there. So anyhow, that will be our net remaining.
Carol, sorry, will you repeat one more time? You said airport, golf course. Did you write that somewhere, or am I missing that?
Actually, on the back of this, well, it's cash, there's a cash transfer out. to
Oh, yeah,
major
okay,
funds.
yeah.
And on the top part of that, I put what general fund gets,
Corrections,
and who we get it from. On the bottom, or not bottom, in the second one, it's 101 general fund support, cash transfer out. Those are the funds that we support with our general funds.
Okay.
And from what I'm looking at in the analysis, basically, the utility departments are funding us cash to fund other departments.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
I just put our ending cash balances there, just so you know. Note number 4, when we have all these negatives, how are we ending up with a positive cash balance? It's because when we budget at 100% expenses, and think, this is how much we're going to use from other funds to support us. Well, we take that money, but we don't always spend all of it. So that's how we end up in the general fund with a positive cash balance.
And it's important to note that that's after we've taken the money, transferred the money from the enterprise funds to the budget. So really many of those funds are utility funds
Right.
that we put into the general fund.
So on note number 1, a negative net means that the revenues do not cover the expenses. So you'll notice in the general fund, right off the bat, we don't generate enough revenue to cover our expenses. Note number 2, general funds are already negative and then cash is transferred out to support other funds. And like I said, we're basically using money from enterprise to cover cash out to other funds. Note number 3, the general fund has to receive money from other funds and use beginning cash to cover shortages. Use of a cash balance to cover your fixed costs is never a good thing. You don't want to depend on that cash to get you through every year, which we are. Did I mention today I was going to give you that answer? Okay. Note number 4, a positive ending cash balance, as I said, is a result of us transferring cash from other departments. Now, the general fund does have some debt, approximately $2 million in outstanding debt. We do an annual loan payments of $286,832, which are taken directly out of our gross receipts. And what those are for is renovation of the police department. And then we refinance loan Tier C13. I'll have to find out what that was a combination of. And we also borrow new money for technology, the park renovations, HVAC, roof repairs. We did purchase one vehicle and minor pool repairs.
Carol,
So, yes, sir.
question. That you said renovation, isn't that for the payment for purchasing the police department?
I thought it was renovation of the police.
It's about 15 or 17,000 a year, something like that, for 20 years or something.
Yeah, we pay almost 15.
Yeah, I think it's built, we bought the department. It used to be a morgue or something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So it was to buy it and renovate.
It's not renovation, it's buying it. I didn't know we had that when I was there. I said, what's this cost? We were buying in the PD, which is, it's in good shape. It's just, got flood
I'm just going
problems.
by history that I've been told. So
Yeah.
very interesting.
I think it ends in 2025 or 6, something like that.
Well, we owe 70,000 on it.
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, okay.
So does anyone have any questions on that portion? The next fund is the 201 Corrections Fund. Generally, the general fund supports this. I believe in prior administration for 2 years, they had the PD gross receipts tax supported just to help the general fund. But you'll notice they're in the same situation. Their revenues do not cover their expenses. We have to transfer cash in from the general fund to support it, and they sometimes end up with a positive balance. And the corrections fund is for the care of prisoners. That's what they told me. The next page 2 is swimming pool. Last year, of course, we had COVID, so we didn't operate as much as we normally have, so the expenses were a little bit lower. But again, you'll see the revenues from the swimming pool do not support the expenses. We have to transfer cash in from the general fund, and they might end up with a small positive balance depending on how much their expenses are. Next, we'll go to the enterprise funds. The cemetery pretty much has historically covered its own expenses, which is good, but we don't pay any salaries or anything out of that fund. That's taken care of by the Parks Department. Yeah, right. The Joint Utility Office, this fund does not generate enough revenues to cover its expenses, but we wouldn't expect that it would. That department are your meter readers and your billing. So they really don't have a source of income other than, fees they want to charge or something like that. That fund is supported by the other utility departments. Over the years, they've all contributed to help keep that fund running.
This is really an intended purpose of utility funds, is to complement the utility billing office and meter readers.
The next fund is the electric department. As we go through their revenues, less their expenses, you'll note they do have enough revenues to cover their expenses until we transfer some of it out. And minus cash out to other funds, so if you're wondering what that is, again, I have this cash transfer sheet, which will show you how much the electric department has supported the general fund over the years. It's anywhere from 1.6 to 1.2. So we really relied heavily on the utility department because they've had the most revenues. As you will see, we're getting really low in cash in that fund, and that really concerns me because both have some pretty big projects we need to take care of, not the electric department.
It's one number that really should be understood, is the average date of the fiscal year,
21, 22.
$111,000. We typically take 1.5, 1.6, 1.8, 1.9 million from utilities. It's not going to be there today at the end of this fiscal year. It will not be there. And barring any unfortunate events that happen in the electric department with utilities and expenses, we know we have to replace 2 transformers in the electric department. One we will be replacing this year. The good news is the electric department has a lot of debt capacity, and we can get a loan for the 1 transformer Bo wants to purchase this year, and then we can look at next year for the next one. He has the capacity to do that. But the cash that we relied on in the past, historically, is taking a large chunk of utility of electric money and putting that into the general fund. It just won't be there at the end of this year. Thank you.
You'll notice their net, I said see note 15. Some years are in negative, and that means that we've taken more money than what their revenues are generated to cover their expenses. So we're relying on their cash balance to help support us too as well.
Hello.
They do have a debt payment. It's for a NMFA refunding. They combine the water and the electric loans. I'm sorry, I should have got more information on the loans for you. But the outstanding principal is $197,000. The annual loan payment is $93,000. That's part of the cash transfer out. This department, as well as the water, wastewater, and sanitation, have city code requirements, a percentage of their prior year revenues. So he's got $167,000 in addition to the loan payments he makes and the cash that we use. Does anyone have any questions on that? We can move on to the water department. Again, their net, their revenues do cover their expenses. This is a department that we've not hit heavily in prior years to rely on for cash, but we have tried to move some of that to the other departments other than electric for understood reasons. Remaining. Again, their net remaining means, and part of this is they have some capital projects. Before me, they used to flow capital projects through these operating funds, and I just think it's a better idea to keep capital projects out of the operating to give you a true picture of your revenues and expenditures. They do have a positive ending cash balance, which is a good thing. So, some of the cash restrictions, they have a lot of debt, okay? I've listed the debt on the side. Their outstanding principal is $1.8 million. Their current loan payment is $174,000. They also have city code requirements, a percentage of their revenues. So their annual cash right now is $208,000 that they have obligated. Now, this loan on the next sheet, we have a loan pending for $5.4 million. This is for the Dane Street District Water Line improvement. So that's a project in progress. I think we're at the engineering.
Yes, we're just final engineering will be closed
The closing means we're going to have another payment due. The estimated payment for that is $203,000. So now they're obligated $377,000 out of their revenue. With the USDA funds, they require a debt service reserve portion be set aside every year until you get a full payment. They also require a short-lived asset reserve. So there's another $170,000 and $20,000 that's going to be the cash available for them. So after this loan is closed, they're going to have an annual obligation of $603,000 annually. So, and I've spoken to Bruce and Tracy. I mean, when I first got here, the loans, I'm just like, who's paying for that? Where's that coming from? I was in this way, so anyway. Any questions? Any comments?
Most of the loans, and Tracy has been very active in soliciting loans and grants for water and wastewater. None of them are 100%. There's a combination of loan grant, and the water department just doesn't have the capacity to incur any more debt at this point. They're right on the verge of, they should have a larger cash revenue available to them, but we also take the money from the water fund as well to complement the general fund for each fiscal year. So every dollar we're taking from water is hampering their ability for debt and additional loans, as well as it's not giving him very limited money and emergency funding should anything really tragic happen in this fiscal year.
The next one we'll go on to is solid waste, also called sanitation. This budget, for the most part, except for projection in 21-22, does have enough revenue to cover its expenses. We combined this with the transfer station, I think, in 1920. So this is that combination of the two. We have not relied heavily on this fund in the past to transfer to the general fund. You will notice in 21-22, we are relying a little more heavily on that fund to help us out.
Is that why it's not covering? Then 2021, where it covers its own expenses, right?
Right, it covers, it. Well, it's going to be a little bit short based on projections, 51,000. We're transferring 900,000 out, so that's going to leave them negative 951, theoretically. Their cash won't be negative, but their revenues won't be enough to cover their expenses and our transfers.
Why is their projected expenses so high compared to last year or 2021?
Well, the prior years are actual expenses, and of course, you know, we always budget at 100%. So I really doubt they'll spend that full amount, but we project it. That's part of their annual expenditures. He is purchasing some equipment that was approved. Believe you me, I look at that every time a purchase requisition goes across my desk. You know, just regular annual operating expenses. Again, the ending cash balance for that fund is projected at $605,000. A concern, considering as big as that department is. We're utilizing cash all over the place. This fund does have a debt. It's solid waste revenue bond. The outstanding principal is $520,000. The current loan payment is $115,000. Also, some city codes where they're required to set money aside for emergency funds and capital improvements. So his annual cash obligation is $167,000. We move on to wastewater. Again, you'll see the same thing. They do have enough revenue to cover their expenses. Their cash out in 16-17, again, included major capital. So they put it in that account, they pull it out of that account, right in the operating fund. So it's really hard to decipher what's true picture. I think as we move on down to 19-20 and on, we've stopped doing that so much. We're utilizing capital funds to do that. But you'll see the net, negative, negative, negative. Again, their revenues can cover their expenses, but loan payments, they've got quite a few loan payments and obligations, plus any cash that the general fund needs. Their cash balance, their ending, has kind of stayed safe it doesn't waver too much from what you can see on there. Their debt, they currently have 1.9 million in outstanding debts. Their loan payments are 78,000. This fund, I've discovered, it's a USDA loan, it did have an annual debt service reserve and a short-lived asset reserve that we have not been setting aside. And you'll see the totals down there. 659,000 for the short-lived asset reserve was from when the first debt happened in 2016 to June 30th of 2021. So we've got to find some way to recoup, set that cash aside out of what he's got left in the cash balance. And I'm sorry to say he or she, but I refer to the person that's the formula. So if you'll see on the second page, he has some city codes as well. We're looking at an annual cash obligation of $1 million to catch up his debt service reserve and his short-lived asset reserve and loan payments. Any questions on that? Okay, we'll move on to the golf course. The golf course does not have enough revenue to cover its expenditures. We have to support that. They get about $50,000 from the, thank you, lodger's tax. The rest comes from the general fund. Again, they might have a little bit of an ending cash balance depending on what their actual expenses were. The municipal airport does not have enough revenue to cover their expenses. We do transfer cash from the general fund to support this account. It might have a little bit of cash left over as well.
Commissioner Lynn?
The golf course, why did the projections drop $20-some thousand?
Because during budget, we kept him a lot. He lost a pretty.
But that's from the budget cuts, the positions, and the changes that we made to reduce revenue.
Yes.
So we're also reducing the
We didn't
money
reduce
in?
revenue, we reduced expenses. Well, revenue is projected at less as well.
Correct, that's, maybe I
I'm very
I'm sorry,
conservative
we're
when I
down
budget.
to $20,000 in the last column. Let me draw a picture.
Right. I'm very conservative when I budget revenues. I'm like, what have they done? Where are we? It's very likely that, Wes is working really hard to get that golf course deal done. We'll probably have more revenues than what we projected. But again, I'm not one to project heavy revenues and then they don't come in. And then I come back to you and say, guess what?
Okay.
When we're safe and we got
I
the work.
just didn't understand the ending balance projection. Okay, thank
You
you.
got to answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And on the last page, we have our internal service fleet fund. This fund has been self-sustaining until our projections for 21-22. And it's because they are fully staffed now. They're servicing our vehicles a lot more, whereas in prior years, I don't think that was being done quite as much. So they do get money from the general fund. This is their money. What happens is they'll charge the other departments a service fee. And also they'll charge the departments for the cost of the pieces and parts that they have to use to fix the vehicles. So it's likely they may not need the cash from the general fund, but we're anticipating that they will. I also handed out to you a grocery receipts tax sheet. As you may or may not remember, grocery receipts tax is our major bread and butter, and that's what we have to use to cover all of our fixed costs. The rest of the revenues fluctuate. We have some, property tax. I think Mr. Single's going to address that a little bit. You'll see that's a minor fraction of it. But I just wanted to let you know it's our major source of municipal revenues. Together with locally imposed municipal gross receipts tax makes up over 70% of the general fund revenues. And statewide, a 5% gross receipts tax is collected, which 1.225% is returned to the municipality. And on average, approximately 6.27 to 6.3 of the gross receipts tax of the general fund portion is used to cover debt. Now, we have ordinances imposed. I'll let Bruce address that one. But we have locally imposed municipal gross receipts tax of 1.6875%. So when you go somewhere and you pay 8.5% tax, part of that is ours, 5% of the state, and the other part is the county's. Just so you're aware.
Commissioner Eric?
Carol, what's our gross receipt tax total approximately that we receive annually? Oh, okay. And also, I think 9% is the maximum allowed by law, right, to impose? No.
No.
Not at all.
It's more than that?
Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, the state gives entities, municipalities, a pool of GRTs that they can impose.
Okay.
And I never added up the total amount, but there are some entities that are over 9%
Okay.
in New Mexico today.
Okay.
Currently, we're at 8.5.
0.5 years.
Okay, so we do have ordinances, and we do know that the state or Department of Finance used to separate all the gross receipts into specific categories. Now they don't put all into one, basically. From what I understand is our ordinances no longer are in effect, or we have that option. I've only got a year.
We used to have, this is a table of enactments of our gross receipts tax. And today, as of March, we have one GRT imposed to the state, and that's for the 1.6875. We used to have a breakdown of the PD's GRT, environmental GRT, streets GRT. That is, as of March of this year, that no longer exists. Doesn't matter how the tax was imposed, whether the commissioners did it or it was a referendum, the state legislature trumped it and put it all into one general fund GRT. And it sounds easier, it's a lot easier for us to budget when we only have one GRT. However, you have the issues of, well, this money was dedicated to the streets. This money was dedicated to the PD. This money was dedicated to environmental. Those things don't exist anymore. It's just one big pot of money. So, and some people might look at it and say, well, general fund dollars, you have more money. But we don't. It's just all been pulled together into one place. So we have to be very mindful, particularly at budget time, that we're still ensuring that the PD's costs are met, streets needs are met, environmental issues are being addressed based on the funding that was allocated to the original. Unless there's a policy shift from the commission.
I have attached how we did have the ordinances broken out in 1.6875. So it'll tell you, how much was to streets, how much to the hospital. Again, until I get further directive or Bruce tells me to stop, I've still broken it out by this. So just so you know, I'm still breaking it out, but if you want to accept them, I can do that.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah,
The next
Commissioner
one is a
Eric?
recap.
let me back up, Bruce. So what you're saying, like PD at 0.25%, way back, that money that's ended. It just goes to one big pot, right?
Yes. Yeah, the money's still being collected, it's just going into the general fund revenue.
So why okay,
This is where the policy decision needs to be made. Carol's still keep this separated
Right.
at the local level. However, when you look at the revenue coming in, I think a few meetings ago, I talked about really like 5% of the PDGRT is actually being used, the rest is just banking. Well, that's revenue that the city can use, but it's gonna have to be a policy decision whether we wanna actually stop tracking it the way Carol is continuing to track it with the separation of the funds for their original, the intended purpose to what the state has, imposed on us.
So we would rather it be grouped and then Carol put it where it needs to go instead of putting it where she has it broke up right now. Correct.
Those are the same.
They're the same.
I think our question to you would be is, do we want to stop breaking it out?
No, that's what I'm saying. You're preferring not to do that.
I'm going to stay out of that.
I would absolutely prefer that we put into one pool of money, and that way you can make your policy decisions based on If you don't do that, then I would encourage you to start taking more of the expenses from those funds out of their GRP that's been dedicated to them historically, instead of having the general fund cover it. I think, again, the PD was somewhere in the neighborhood of 5%, that we're taking out of that fund. Everything else is coming, it was just raises, future raises that was coming out of that fund. So they have 2 gross receipts that they're being collecting, and I think the cash balance was somewhere in the neighborhood of 800,000
Yeah.
today. Well, that's 800,000 that the commissioners could use for other operations if you necessary.
And the chief's over there saying, that's $800,000 I could use to recruit more officers and make Commissioner Luna happy and get all our officers to live in town.
I certainly did not consult with the chief.
We saw it by the look on his face, just saying.
Awful quiet.
It's the same thing with all the other funds and the dedicated purpose,
Right.
what you had intended, historically, the money to go to, the state is just stuck with that. And we can continue to keep it separate, or we can pull the money into one general fund.
So Bruce, what I'm saying, like, if they got 800,000 or whatever, another department, if we agree to do, you know, what the state's saying, would they lose that money, or have we decided where it goes?
I think the commissioners would decide where it goes.
Okay.
But
We're deciding where it goes now, just in a different medium. Yeah, in a different manner.
Yeah, it's a good thought. We need to keep that in mind.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I guess the concerning thing here is if we pull that money and put it onto a pot, that will use it for general operations,
Right.
in general fund use, and we'll expense it in a year. Yeah, and then we'll be in the same boat.
Right, right.
There's a recap of the taxes, and then there's a detail, so you know on the ordinances what we get. On average, we receive a little over 4 million a year in gross receipts tax. Approximately 1 million of that goes out to these ordinances and not available in the general fund. We pay over 200,000 in alarms, so out of that 4 million, we bring home about 66, 67 bring home. I was thinking, I'm gonna pay that. We benefit from 66% of it, about 2.8 million is what goes into the general fund to support all of our fixed costs.
Commissioner Luna, you had a question?
So I'm not trying to pick on anyone, and so when I call out your name or department, please don't feel attacked, but I have questions. So, we heard about the golf course and the pool. That's why you guys are sitting at opposite ends. You guys are going to get out here in a little. But I didn't hear about the library. I didn't hear about the court. I heard about everybody else. I know the street situation is a little bit different of an in its own beast, but can you tell me where we are with these 2 departments specifically? And if I missed any of the rest of y'all, and I realize it in a minute, I'm coming out in a minute.
If you recall, and this is just to show you what other funds the general fund supports, what enterprise funds. During the budget process, we gave you a breakdown of what department uses how much. I didn't print out budget reports.
That's why I asked. So, funny you mentioned it.
Anyhow, if anybody needs that, it can be provided. Lost my train of thought on that.
So the library,
The library gets state funding, but they also get general fund revenues. General fund.
so $211,000, 212, we'll round up. The library?
To run the library? 211?
Was 2021 budgeted, and 229,000 was 21-22 projected.
So the library right now, we do have 218,000 budgeted into it.
218?
Yes.
Of which,
036. That might be a little bit different than the original budget.
and so of that, how much is state funded?
That's in a different pot.
Okay.
In a 294 fund.
So that
So we're-
218 is
So we pay,
General fund.
general fund.
Right.
we pay 218, the city.
218 for the library, and that covers mostly their salaries.
And so revenue from the library is what?
Zero problem.
Somebody is getting fined for not turning their book in on time, I'm sure.
Oh, $10 thing.
So they do generate state revenues. And right now, we have a budget of 46,000 projected. So they do get money from the state to support their books and computers.
But on top of that 46,000 that the state is sending, or dollars in, we are giving them 218.
Yes.
Okay. So for the municipal court, I show $258,000 and 258. And revenues for the court,
Probably around 4,000 maybe.
How much?
4.
and so do they have any other dollars in that are not, I mean, we're spending 258,000 general fund dollars. We're getting 4,000. We still have to pay for prisoner care no matter what happens.
Yes.
So
Is
we're at a
prisoner-
250.
Is prisoner care in that 258, or is that we
That's
separate
separate.
it?
Different ones. That's one of the ones that we support with cash.
Okay, super sorry, Tara. I realized I missed the animal shelter.
You were like, she's like, that's fine.
What is the animal shelter's outlay?
The animal shelter right now is 179,350.
Annually?
Give me that number one more time.
179.
179,350. They do bring in some revenues though, I'll have to say. We get, fees from Elephant Butte, Williamsburg, the county.
But-
and
but-
Adoption fees.
On top of those fees, we're at 179, 350. Or that's,
Well, their fees go into the general pot,
Okay.
then we allocate it.
okay.
If I could tell you.
I just don't feel like it's fair to consider cutting one service or
Right.
doing something to one and not looking at the whole picture. So please know, I'm on everyone's side.
And the animal pound fees, we budgeted 63,000 this year. They've come in a little bit higher than that in prior years, but with COVID.
Okay. Margaret is raising her hand.
You got lady?
One thing that I want to clarify. So on the prisoner bill, the officers can pick up a warrant for anyone that, is filed in a municipal magistrate's district or whatever. So that whole bill is not the court bill. It's the police officers, whoever it is, pick up. So if you have 20 people that were arrested for a month in your bill for every single one of those could be municipal, and the rest could be everywhere else. So that total, you guys have to look at, that they're not all ours,
Okay.
they're probably a factor.
But that's in prisoner care, which is separate from the 258.
Right, but I want to make sure that you guys know that, when you guys look at that you're not automatically thinking
That's
that.
because they're big deficit, okay. And no matter what, we would still have that bill, because we arrested somebody who had an issue.
We do not pay for people that are arrested on state charges. The county absorbs that cost. We only are obligated to pay those that are arrested on city ordinance.
Okay, perfect.
It's gone up to,
Okay, do you guys have?
gone up to $110.
No, she's saying, so if we get a bill, there's, our officer, Frazier takes them up there, they send the bill to the city, we have to show that that prisoner wasn't on city charges just because a PD officer took them, they were actually there on state charges.
But we're only getting the bill for them if we don't pay the bill if they're on state charges, is that what you're saying?
Right.
Okay.
So we have to show where they're charged, just because a city officer took them doesn't mean a city has to pay for it.
And another cost that's kind of hidden in that physical care, it's the cost that the PD has experienced where they have to take inmates or prisoners to the hospital for medical clearance. To date, our bill is $173, or $170,000. This one. Yeah, we were in the process of negotiating that amount with the hospital, and unfortunately, there's a leadership change in the hospital, so we'll have to start that process again when they get somebody on board. But we are offering $173,000 today. And as the rest of the
This will be the first year that we've budgeted for that. We haven't budgeted that in the past, so we have used some money from PD gross receipts to help cover part of that. So the care of prisoners budget is much higher than the other force. With that anticipation, that we are going to have to.
You know, is there any more sheets we need to talk about? Is there more sheets we need to talk about? Is that it?
No.
Okay.
Anything else for you?
Madam Mayor, let me just say this, we got 22 or 23 staff members here, and Bruce, I applaud you for finally bringing this to a head. We've been kicking this can down the road since I've been here, and we gotta do something, and I'm just gonna say this, you know, having worked in 6 cities, we're a publicly funded business. If a business operated this way, they would be out of business. And we got, George Zagetti and I talked over the weekend quite extensively, and I want to pass it out to the commissioners and the mayor. You gotta, if I was running a business, or you was, or the mayor, you put essential, non-essential. And you start stacking it, basically. You know, what's gotta go, what you gotta have, police, fire, trash, attorney, and then you put the non-essential down there on the right side, and something's gotta happen. We're getting 4 million and change from revenues, and our expenses are out of the roof. We've got 3, and they're very important to people. The pool, the library, the golf course, that's almost $900,000 that we're actually giving and not getting anything back. And you know, you start cutting stuff like that, the pitchfork and torches come to my door and your door. But we gotta think like a business. We can't keep doing this. We're assembled here all day. I take a day off from school. We gotta do something. And it's either, I said it at the meeting the other day, Ben Franklin said 1789, you're short of 2 things, death and taxes. And I don't want to hear that. No one wants to hear taxes, but something's got to happen. So when I leave this meeting today, I want us to have a plan. And maybe you give us options on, I mentioned this the other day, what do we need to do to get this shortfall fixed? Because I want this to happen. And I think all the commissioners feel the same way. I know Commissioner Luna does. We're paying, over $110,000 for prisoners. You can't stop that. You can't stop the dispatch. You can't stop the PD. You can't stop the fire. But you can maybe stop some other things if you're not going to get taxes. So something's got to happen. And it's really going to hurt. People are going to be upset. The 50 or 60 people play golf. They don't want to hear this. But tell us where to get the money from. Or the library. I had a city once, they cut the library. They hated it. But they brought it back eventually when they had the money. So we really got to do something today, okay? That's my feelings.
Mayor and Commissioners, I think it's really important to understand that we need to make the change for the benefit of the community, but we also need to do it for our employees. Mm-hmm. Right now, our employees are paid very low, very poor, as a whole. You've not had the money historically to count on giving raises to employees. We've harmed staff, we've harmed the community. We've harmed the community, never more apparent than the electrical outage that we were in peril of, the water issue we just experienced. And those things are a combination of the efforts of taking money from their funds and depriving them of the infrastructure needs that they have to deal with on an annual basis.
Well, this is not something that's happened overnight.
No, this is decades.
Yeah.
This is decades and decades of philosophy. And I know what the commission is doing over the course of those decades. We want to keep a pool. We want to keep a golf course. We want to be able to give the SGOA money. to feed the seniors. We want to keep an airport. So you take the money from where it's at, and it was in the enterprise fund. Well, we've just taken too much from them. There's no more to take. So, having said that, kind of get into some of the department uses. Right now, the swimming pool, they're averaging 1,000, a little over 1,000 swimmers per month. That's a considerable use. That's a considerable use. Maybe you need to look at, we need to look at what our fees are for the pool. And increase those fees.
What are they right now?
$3 for kids and seniors, non-swimmers at $1, and then $4 for adults. And we have passes available as well.
Madam Mayor.
Commissioner Aragon.
You see, it kind of, Bruce, on that same wavelength, it seems like that is an option. If we're going to keep certain things open, that needs to cover itself, needs to pay for itself. And that's just standard. Businesses do that all the time. You know?
There's no metric for what to get revenue here. I think you're going to have to look at increasing revenue streams. And we have to cut costs. We can't make up $2 million with tax increases or user impact, user fees, all in one bite. Those things have to be done kind of steadily, incrementally to get to a number. And we can't cut services, or a lot of services, because there's not a lot of revenue in each one of the departments anyway. Looking at reducing the budgets, we cut them to the extent that they can be cut. Now, what I would like to see at the end of the day is we still only expense essential needs for the rest of this fiscal year. What's essential, it's important to the mission of that department, then we need to fund it and expense it. If not, we need to save that money for next year. Everything we save this year is a dollar we don't have to make up for next year. The airport's averaging between 100 and 140 landings a month. That's a significant number of landings. Airport. We did not have the time to put together how many are coming in and getting fuel versus how many are just landing and taking off or touching those coming into our facility. We didn't have an opportunity to put all that information together for you. But landings themselves.
Sorry, and what was the number on users at the pool?
It's over 1,000 a month.
Well, how many people we get in the library every month?
How many people do we get in the library every month?
Right now, we're anywhere between 30 and 65 people.
And what are your fees?
I'm sorry,
What are the fees
library's not fees.
for, like Fred just said, late books? You don't charge fees for late returns?
We do not, they have found over the years that if you charge fees for a late book, you're more than anything else, you're likely to have to get the book back.
Just don't go back.
And we do want the books back.
That makes sense.
The golf course?
The golf course, they're looking at between 500 and 550 rounds a month. We don't have a lot of historical data on it. It's not something that we really track historically, but we have since I've been here, and it's 500, 550 a month. The issue, I think, of the golf course is the fees and all the different packages that are out there. They're very advantageous to the golfer. They're not as advantageous to the golf department and the costs that they're incurring.
Bruce,
Particularly at a time where Wes is really trying to improve the golf course to bring it back to the days that it was many years ago.
Commissioner Aragon.
Yeah, you said 550 a month around.
Between 500 and 550.
Now, that's like, when you say around, that's around nine holes?
Yes.
So we don't know how many people.
Just figure 500. You don't know if it's the same 140 people landing at the airport.
Yeah,
You don't know if it's the same 25 people
Yeah.
going 15 times a day to the swimming pool.
Yeah.
It doesn't,
They're
that's
still
not
paying
the
the
point. They're paying the fee, they're using the service. It doesn't matter if Wes goes and plays 550 rounds all by himself in a month, which he probably would look much more relaxed if that's what he was doing.
I do have a breakdown here. In May, we had 555 for May. In June, we had 492. And in July, we had 520.
okay.
And what is around the golf?
18 holes is $27 with the card. 9 holes is $18 with the card.
Madam Mayor, if you would indulge me for just a moment.
Commissioner Luna.
No one wants to live where there are no services. No one wants to live where there's no golf course, no swimming pool, no library. I know some people who use the airport, but it's not a luxury, it's a thing. It's the things you want in a community. We can't be attractive as a community and get more gross receipts tax and get more property tax and increase our property values if we shut down, if we leave this meeting today and announce on Wednesday that we're closing the pool, we're closing the library, and sorry, we don't have a golf course anymore, and we're not watering the baseball fields because our water's too salty, and so we're not gonna seed them. Oh, and that investment of disc golf that we just put in, well, have fun, because very quickly it's gonna be in the desert, and you can do that anyways, anywhere. Nobody wants to live in that place, like, it makes me want to leave.
Right.
And I can hear Raymond Ruffini calling me as soon as we leave Wednesday's meeting, saying, we have to raise taxes and we have to cut services. And he's going to say, you can't raise the taxes on the TRC people anymore, they can't withstand it. But here's the deal, we can't afford to leave all these things that we all want open and not raise the taxes, or raise the fees. I think $3 to go swimming is affordable, and I think $5 is absolutely reasonable. Everybody who has $3 in their pocket has $5 in their pocket. So I don't see that being that big of an increase. Yes, we're almost doubling the fees, and I can see that that's what Kathleen is gonna write in the blog. Swimming pool fee nearly double so pool can stay open. But guess what, then the pool gets to stay open. And I would much rather us raise it to $5 and the pool stay open than us sit here and have a conversation about what services we close to the residents who already feel like they can't depend on the lights, they can't depend on the water, and they don't know when the toilet's gonna flush. I don't wanna be a representative of a town like that. So I would much rather have a conversation today about what our tax increase options are and how we can generate more revenue, realizing that some of those may be because we can tax electric rates. And maybe that's why we continue to take part of Bo's money. Sorry, Bo, I just picked on you because you're sitting on the box. But I would rather have those kinds of conversations. But I'm gonna say, the only service I see that we can cut today that doesn't impact anyone is the municipal court. Because the only thing that changes is those citations go from right here to magistrate court. No one else is affected. Poor Margaret gets to look for something else, and we can probably find her an open job in the city working in procurement or something. But we also reduce our liability by closing the court.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to say, in the grand picture, we save $258,000 off the bat. We don't lose a service. There's still a court that provides those court functions. We don't have to close the swimming pool. We don't have to do anything else. We raise the taxes, and then we can do that with the promise of improving our services. And that's,
Mayor Brooklyn, Mayor, Madam Mayor,
Commissioner Aragon.
get it right someday.
Yeah, one of these days you'll
We'll
get
get it
right.
right. Madam Mayor, okay. Everything Commissioner Lewis said, I concur with. It's a hard option. You know, the alternative to decreasing services is revenue streams. And, Margaret, this thing with the, Commissioner Luna mentioned about the court, wasn't there some kind of, survey done or, that a city can do that and turn it over to magistrate court? And I don't know what happened. We didn't do it. Is that still, on the board, on the, table? The city can do that?
That's not something we're worried about today. We're just worried about money and budgets. And what I'm going to say is, I'm in concurrence with all of you, okay? But, again, our employees are suffering. You know, we don't have enough employees. We have to close the pool. I see Facebook posts where we have to close the pool because we don't have anybody to run it or operate it. And it can't be done by one person or two people. You know, the golf course, we had a severe rainstorm last week, and the golf course has been closed for, what, a week? Hopefully it's open now. I mean, so again, you know, we can't cut services. We live in a senior community. We have people that we have to feed. We have a library that some people don't have any place else to go but to the library. And that's where they communicate. So again, you know, I've been here for a while, and you know, it makes it sound like we've done nothing. But we have. I mean, when we lost employees, we didn't replace them because we tried to save money somewhere. That killed our employees. That stressed our employees. That overworked our employees. You know, we want to live in a community with nice things. We want to be a community that everybody loves to come to and wants to be here as a tourist or a newcomer or whatever. But without us, we can't do anything. So again, we just need to look at what we can do today to make us stay operable and keep our people happy. Without happy people, we might as well just close everything. You know, I mean, that's my spill, so. Okay, where are we at next?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners. The issues that you talked about, with the swimming pool, the golf course, the library, those are quality of life issues.
Right.
Those are last resorts. Those are the last thing in the world you want. When you look at some of this, is talking about what you were hitting on there, the staff, and we have that staff, and we are one deep in so many places, in so many offices. I know Parks has somewhere in the neighborhood of 23, 24 properties and parks that they're responsible for. What is that, 4 employees? 4 employees total. That's including burials. Including the department manager. Including the manager. That is an awful lot of properties that 4 people are responsible for. And this time of year with leaves growing, it's insane how they're working, trying to accommodate the community and the city. That's something we need to talk about as well, and we'll get to that a little later. I want to talk a little bit about property taxes. Property taxes. Right now, the city's property tax rate is 1.542 mils.
Are you reading this off a piece of paper you give us?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
We talked about $170,000 in property taxes. I know of no other place in New Mexico where property taxes are this low. I know we have an impoverished community, we have an elderly community, and we have people living on fixed incomes. So does every other community.
What is the average rate in the state? What's the average rate in the state?
I don't know the average rate. I can give you Alpha View is 4.225.
Wow.
Sierra County's is 9.419. And Williamsburg is 1.705. I know of nobody that's at 1.5. And what that means is 1.5 per $1,000 property. That's what you're collecting as a city. There is no way that the city of Elephant View should be generating almost double the revenue that the city generates in property taxes with the populations, the number of residents in each community, other than the fact that they've imposed 4.225%. That's residential and non-residential.
What are you suggesting on going up to? What would you
I'm not
suggest?
suggesting anything other than if you were just to double that number. 3.8, you
Madam,
would double. People's property taxes would not double. The city's portion would double. What that would mean, I have not calculated out what it would be for somebody that owns a $100,000 home. I have not calculated that out. It's not going to be a lot of math to do it, but you're looking at another 1.4%.
Commission, we have the luxury of having a former county assessor with us, right? And treasurer. So, she could do
been a while.
that math very quickly, I'm sure.
It's been a while.
But if we doubled that number, we would double our money in. That's easy math. So what is the process for us to raise that tax?
And I've always asked that question because that's something we have, for the last 4 or 5 years, internally, we've talked about it. And I, at one point, even called the state, which they never got back because of COVID and everything. But I wanted to know what the process was so that we could increase that tax and how we could go about it. Because we've been there forever. I mean, I know that it's been a long time, and I don't think it's ever been raised up.
Every tax that I've seen, property tax, has been through referendum. That I've seen. I don't know that that's a requirement. Ironically, the cap for municipalities is 7.65 mils. So even at 3%, you're literally about half.
And what is the money we're generating from our 1.45?
70.
170,000 is what we're generating currently.
So just to double that would be 340.
But that doesn't even scratch the surface of our
Correct.
deficit.
And I don't think that any one fix is going to be the magic fix. There's going to be changes made on a lot of things.
So without, at this point, sorry, Madam Mayor, at this point, if we were to have a referendum, it would have to be a special election because we've already missed the time. Or, right, because we can't even get it on for the November
I
ballot.
don't think so, I think we're past the deadline.
And I think what we need to do is our due diligence on what it means to the property owner. What increases that for, say, average $100,000 home? How much more is that going to cost them? Or by per thousand, what that's going to cost them? So that it would help you make a more informed decision. But again, doubling your taxes doesn't do anything but add another $170,000 to the general fund.
So what is option B?
I think we're gonna have to need option A, B, C, D.
A,
To get us
A,
through.
B, yeah.
Well, and I think that's something really that we need to, desperately, that we need to look into and go forward with it as soon as possible to make sure, and let the public know, keep them in the loop that this is what it's going to cost, and this is why we're doing it, and when we're going to do it, and how we're going to do it.
Madam Mayor, I have a question.
Commissioner Forrester.
What was done historically with the airports? I mean, years ago, I think it was somebody leased the airport. Is that correct? You know about that?
I've never known that. Never
At
heard
least the
that.
hangars.
Yeah, just the hangars. No?
Absolutely.
No.
We've always had an airport manager there.
Somebody, I mean, maybe, but, I mean, I think John Richardson was one of them that was,
He leased a hangar there.
was operating the airport.
John Richardson has never operated the airport.
Not that I know of.
Because before it was, the guy now, it was Blair. Before that, it was, or Ron, there was a minute.
With Black, we had Dan, yeah.
John Dixon was there for like 15 years.
Yeah.
Good. Madam Mayor.
There are a couple options to look at with the airport. One, We don't have to run it. The airport can just be an airport with no real oversight over the city, from the city.
But then we lose the revenue from the fuel, right?
Well, we lose the revenue, but you're paying far more than what you're getting in revenue from operating the airport. And, I mean, if you look at it, how many years is it going to take to grow the revenue stream at the airport, where it's actually exceeding the expenses of the airport? I think that's an important number.
That'd be something.
Frankly, it's not within the next 12 months.
So if we cut all staff at the airport, God, I hate those words. But do we have enough positions how many open positions do we have?
Well, one is just, he's a contractor out there, he's not even with the city, correct?
Correct, but we have 2 employees, right?
We have one seasonal, part-time employee, and then we have 2 full-time, one part-time,
Landon.
one part-time permanent, one part-time seasonal, and one full-time, and then contracted manager. But Mayor, President Commissioners, I'm currently working on an RFP, I've almost got it completed, on sending it to Harold and Bruce to look at, and that's, going out for proposals to see what a fixed space operator would do for us for an airport. Doesn't mean we have to go that route, but in some of the other airports, like the town is one, they've turned their entire airport services over to the fixed space operators. They collect, they deal with the fuel, they deal with the hangars, everything. The city maintains ownership, so we still get the state and federal grants. But the city collects a small percentage off of the hangar grant and off of maybe the fuel sales, and then the fixed space operator collects, a portion. And that's the proposal will be, we'll have them offer us different scenarios. And so I'm going to turn pretty much the entire thing over and just collect a very minimal amount. But it enables a private company to bring our airport up to maybe a higher standard, offer services that we can't offer as a municipality, and then maybe those pilots can get more pilots coming in, generate more DRT and stuff to our airport than what we're able to do.
Commissioner Aragon.
Yeah, so basically what I'm hearing on this equation, if we want to keep services status quo, and we do not want to reduce recipient monies that we pay out every year, all we have left is increasing user fees, GRT, and property tax. Unless you know some other solution, I think someone needs to tell us how much that needs to go up. And then we need a caucus and decide on how to do it. That's my feelings right now. We could talk all day long, but if that's where we're going to stay at,
Or
that's
to
great.
pay somebody to do that.
Well, I mean, with finance and Bruce telling us what we need to do, that's what we need to do. And if we don't do that, we got to do something else. Go back to what we said, the services and we could talk about this all day long, but we need some figures, and we need.
$2 million is the figure he gave us.
You need 2 million, 2.5 million.
So tell us how we could do that with GRT, property tax, and user fees, and then we could caucus on that, right? Not now. I mean, I know you can't do
Well,
this.
I don't think you
Do have to
It's going
do
to be
this
a
now.
policy decision that the commissioner's going to have to make.
But I mean, some figures have got to be, to get there, what do we have, what's the percentage we should look at
Madam Mayor?
of whatever it is, or the cost of the fees? And then we can caucus among ourselves and see if it's palatable.
Excuse me, Bruce?
Commissioner Baca.
What about this electric thing you brought up to us?
This way.
The electric department thing with the co-op? Is that going to be something that might work out for us, or do we know yet, or?
We have no clue. The electric department, the co-op is looking at purchasing the electric department. They're doing their due diligence now on evaluating what the value of what our infrastructure is. And of course, they're going to factor in what needs to be done fairly soon, replaced. All that'll come in to a dollar value, and then they'll decide whether it makes sense for them to purchase the department.
Oh,
A lot of things have to come in play here for this to work out. Ultimately, it'll be your decision when they throw a number out, what they'll pay for the department. But the number will be significant. the number will be significant.
Also, I just thought of something. How much is the hospital costing us yearly? Is that something that we?
Stand down. Step away from the hospital.
We're obligated,
Let me go battle.
Yeah.
we're obligated through the joint powers agreement to pay basically 2/8 gross receipts tax to the hospital.
Only reason I brought it up.
General fund dollars at all.
No.
Oh, okay. All right, never
Gross
mind.
receipts tax.
You and I, we will have it out right now.
We'll all battle.
I'm not saying so.
And you're on that, you have that obligation for about 28 more years and thereabouts.
And I will tell you this, I tried to get someone out of the JPC, it's impossible.
I was just asking
So,
a question.
We
Calm
can't
down.
get out. Think something else. I specifically didn't wear the shirt that you could see when I get mad, so.
We've kind of talked about property taxes, now we've kind of talked about, a little bit about GRT. Right now, we're at 8.5%. When you look at the GRT rates across the state, we are one of the highest. There's a couple of special districts, like the water and soil districts are a little higher, a couple of municipalities that are higher than us. I don't know how you could increase GRTs any more than they currently are today. It's your decision if you choose to, but 8.5 is a very high rate.
Do we have any room in there though?
There would be room to increase GRTs should the commission wish to do so. I would have to look and see what increments are still available to us.
Think about 0.5% would give us 700K, something like that, almost $1 million.
0.5% of GRT is a big chunk.
Yeah, I know.
Well, and I'm gonna say this, Amanda, you say no, Do you wanna close the swimming pool and deal with 1,000 people? Do you wanna close the golf course or the library and deal with those people calling you every day saying, you closed my only reason for living. I can't do aerobics anywhere. I can't walk, but I can put my walker down and get in the pool and do my aerobics. I don't want those phone calls. I'd rather listen to all the people bitch about another 0.25% when they buy something, because it's still not on food.
Groceries, yeah.
And so we're not impacting the low income who can't afford it, but damn sure buy cigarettes and cars and new phones all the time. Sorry, let me tell you how I really feel.
Or your travelers that come through
Yeah,
and buy
then
gas
there's the
and buy-
people who are passing through, who use our services, use our roads, use all of our stuff that we need, and then they leave. I'd much rather raise gross receipts tax than close any of these services.
Yes.
I can deal with people saying, I have to pay another 0.25%. Oh my gosh, yes, so does everyone else, except when you go buy groceries.
That would be about 350,000.
Yeah, or medicine. And don't complain about it when you buy a beer next time. Well, buy me one, and then I'll listen to you complain. So we have, you think, some room in there?
There's some.
And 0.5% you said is about 700,000?
A half is about
And what-
700,
and
but I
what
thought there was a
has to
limit
happen
on
for
it,
that
on the
to
I
percent.
think the
Do it have
highest
to
cities
go
are
to referendum too?
9.something%.
There's some of that we can
Yeah.
approve ourselves.
Yeah, the commissioners
Yeah,
can close,
We can?
yeah,
Yeah. That doesn't have to go to vote.
but we need to check into it and make sure.
I asked Jay for that my very first meeting,
You did.
so he was going to look at it. He might have already done that homework.
What is like Socorro? Sending,
Socorro, the highest rate I've seen is 9.475%.
It should be Taos.
That's the highest.
Is that Taos?
Tahoe,
Or Redosa?
something.
Redosa's pretty high.
Gallup or
I
something.
thought there was like a 10% in Redosa.
Taos Ski Valley.
Yeah.
and they're 9.4?
And you said Socorro?
Yeah.
I think it was us.
Socorro's at 7.8.
Yeah, about.
And look at Socorro dying and shriveling up. The only more depressing place than Socorro is Lordsburg, New Mexico. And it's an armpit of the state. So, I have a question. If we raise the swimming pool rate $2, what do you think the kick got? How much flack are you gonna get?
Well, I imagine it'll be a little negative at first, but I mean, if it's closing the pool or raising the fees, I'm sure people will be on board with it.
Kyle, are there any passes that people buy that like weekly, monthly, annually?
Yeah.
That, what I noticed with like the golf course, the passes are extremely generous to the user and not as generous to the entity. Certainly, we're losing money on those types of package deals. And I don't know that that's the case here, but it's certainly something that has to be looked at.
Well, so we say the senior pass, it's our most sold pass, it's $50 and you get 30 visits to the pool. So you save a total of $100.
No,
that pass.
Kyle, you don't save anything. It's fixing to cost you a
Well,
pool.
So stop selling them.
The customers say that.
No, I get it. And quite the sales pitch you just made. I want one.
Yeah, you probably qualify for senior.
Almost.
I'm gonna throw down there. Wonderful.
So what if we did away with those, do you think the number of users goes down?
I think that's a pretty good source of revenue for us, but I don't know, to be honest. It's hard to say. Because I know a lot of seniors, when they come for the therapy and aerobics during the summer, they're looking to buy those passes.
And are those the only passes, or what other passes do you have?
We have adult passes and youth passes as well. And then we have a 10 punch pass for just $25, and that's only good for 10 visits. So.
Figure that in.
So who else has rates that we can jack? Sorry, it's real. I'm not the beat around the bush person. Y'all should know that about me by now. So how many people that play golf have a membership?
There's probably 45 people that have memberships there.
And does that drive their usage of the course?
Yeah, because each time they come, whenever somebody buys a membership, it's decent money for that day. But then after that, then they won't have to pay the GIF, the dollar for the golf improvement fund. And that's just one time per day. So if they came in the morning and paid the dollar and played and come back in the evening, they don't have to give that dollar the second time around. If we don't have memberships and they have to pay the 27 or the 18 to play a round of golf, then that puts more money in the spreadsheet every day.
What's the difference? What's their discount with the membership?
I'm not sure if it's a discount for 1 year, an annual pass with a card was like $9.60 for the year.
Unlimited?
I'm sorry.
Unlimited play?
Yes.
$960, I can play all I want.
And that was, all these prices were passed several years ago by the commission.
So I go play 9 holes, give me this price again, sorry, I'm gonna do okay, $18,
So 9 holes.
960 divided by 18. 53 rounds, that covers 53 rounds. That's nothing.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I don't
That's
know
2
how-
months of playing 5 days a week.
I don't know how detrimental it would be to the ones that do have the memberships and have had them for years. That would be detrimental to the golf course as far as them not coming.
So 960 has been the standing rate for,
Well, since the reclamation advised in 2018, I believe it is.
What are the green fees that Sierra?
you can't even have.
Rio Del Rio, 76. I know they raised those. It's $45 per person.
And how much for a car?
That includes the play. And they did raise their membership fees. When I was out there, the membership fees was $2,200 a year, and they raised it to $4,200 a year.
And
They
so
have lost a lot of members over there.
it's 45 for 18 holes?
Yes, ma'am.
And then do they ever sell 9 or no?
No.
And, is that with like early bird or just regular play?
The only special that I know they have is on Tuesdays, and 2 people can go play for $50, but then the bar and the restaurant's closed on Tuesdays, so
Sorry. Okay, so $960. That's insane.
I mean, I don't seem like we could even go meet it in the middle, 1,500 or something.
Sorry. David just, I did not mean to say that, I'm sorry.
We also have the garden farm center that we use out to workforce solutions. We're working on a new contract there. So far, we use them to run that well with rate, whatever figure that we rent them for, which is about $900 a month. But they lease the whole building, but there's 4 other classrooms that Jay and sublease themselves. Besides that, we also take care of the water, the sewer, revenues, their gas, electricity,
And they're paying $900 a month for the whole facility, and we pay all their utilities?
yeah, maybe separates for other costs.
We don't even pay a sheet.
Are they subleasing, I mean, are they leasing out those rooms?
One of them right now, that I know of,
Do you know to whom?
is that information on exactly should
So when we renew that contract, let's prevent them from subleasing and allow them only the use of one classroom, and we get to rent out the other classroom.
This is going to be a common theme you're going to hear throughout the day, is we're providing services or property at really a net cost.
Yeah, I don't understand.
The hangars at the airport, roughly $100 a hangar, and we're providing water, electricity to them. So, I mean, this is kind of a select group, but there's not a lot of people that own airports or airplanes. And
we're giving them all this.
for the size of the space, you can't go rent a storage space in town for that. And this is for the airplane.
The old hangars are 75, and it's 110 for the new hangars. The corner, yeah.
All right, before we continue, let's take a 10-minute break. It is now 10:30. I see a lot, our workshop. I do want to just kind of let, all you department heads know, please don't take anything that's said here today about getting rid of people and closing this and closing that seriously. Again, we've had this topic of conversation for a while now. Each and every time we talk about budget, we talk about our shortfalls, and so you all play a big part of this. And so we just need conservative ways of making this work for all of us. I want to assure each and every one of you that we value you a lot. You all do a great job at what you do, and don't ever feel that we're stressing you. I know we're the ones that are supposed to be stressed, and we're supposed to are the ones that have the backbone to be here. And so all of you, like OJ said this morning, he's got many properties that he has to take care of and very few employees. But AJ, you've done a fabulous job. The parks look great, the ballpark, I mean, the cemeteries, and so keep up your good work. Westview with the golf course. And again, these are the quality of life issues that we have and we need in our small community. So don't ever feel that we're picking on you as the employee. We just need to make these comments, and we need to figure out ways to make things work for us. So again, thank you. Bruce?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners. I think the next thing I'd like to talk about is some of the property assets the city has. Right now, we have about 116 properties around the city that the city owns. We probably have a few more than that. They just haven't been, we're in the process of taking possession of these properties. These are properties that we got to go pull weeds. They're off the tax rolls because we own them. If we're not going to use those properties, if they're not in our 5 or 10-year plan, those things should be put back on the market, put on the tax rolls. We're not going to get a tremendous amount of revenue, from each one of these properties and selling them. However, over time, it's going to increase the revenue stream for property taxes. I think the key is to get everything we can back on the tax rolls, and as soon as we can get it. Here's a map of the property.
Bless you.
Thank you. See, we probably are the largest landholders in the city of Searcy, which means that's impacting our property tax revenues. We don't want to have something that just the whole, if it's an asset that we're currently using, or it's in a 5 or 10-year plan that we'll be using, then maybe we should keep it. Otherwise, those things should be put out in the market and sold.
The airport, Cayo Negro, right, starting at the top.
The airport is out here.
Because there's some of those things that we have stuff on that we can't just like, oh yeah, we'll sell that. Oh crap, that was Cayo Negro Dam.
Oh, we do.
Oops. Didn't mean to sell that one.
That way,
Yeah.
Bruce, we acquired them through liens and stuff, liens, or how did we acquire those
These
properties?
are properties we own. Don't know if we purchased them. If we took possession of them when we did an abatement.
Okay. Do we know about how much the value of the total would be, if, you know, just a ballpark figure?
I have that each property surveyed. and
Okay.
appraised with the policy.
What's the number of actual properties that we could put out there today to sell?
115 or something.
I'll have to pull that from the county assessor.
Okay,
well, yeah, let's definitely get that done.
Properties that we don't have assets on today.
correct, right. Something that we've acquired through abatement or,
It'd also be like, everywhere, the city owns the property, because it's right, it's not able to be developed. But we do have a lot of property out there, outside the city, like, on the county area. That's why we do that.
There's a beautiful spot in Chio that I have no idea how we got
That's
it.
gotta be
It
good.
looks like a
the
pretty good
dam,
section of
yeah,
land.
that's gotta be the dam,
You should go see that
Yeah.
property and then you'll realize why we own that.
right,
There's a huge dam there that prevents the town from flooding.
flooding, yeah, and it's been there for many years.
It was a big deal.
Inquiries, too.
Bruce, you had mentioned about the electrical thing earlier, electrical deal that you called us on last week, a week before. When, if that transpired with the transfer and all, electrical, about them purchasing the electrical thing, if that transpired, if it transpired, it's going to be a long way off, I think you said, right? Like years. Okay, so that's not an immediate solution. Okay, all right.
Madam Mayor, I said during the break, I believe we could sit here all day and beat this horse. Personally, I feel like we need everybody that has, every department that has fees to come back with the fee adjustments. What do you feel that your customers, you know your customers, what do you feel that your customers can withstand? And I'm gonna say, the newspaper is still 50 cents, because that's not where I make my money.
So they have to-
But I also know that a lot of people who pay 50 cents would balk for 2 weeks if I doubled it to $1, which would still be less than every other paper out there. But I don't wanna listen to them complain. But I'm a private business person and I get to deal with that. I'm not paying my business with tax dollars. And we are functioning with tax dollars, so we need to ask our customers straight up, hey, if it was the pool closes or you pay blank amount, what is that amount? How much would you pay for your golf membership? What's too much? What do you feel is fair? I know you're getting a deal. You're here 362 days a year. You take off Christmas, Thanksgiving, and your birthday. What's the right amount? What are you willing to pay for that? And I almost say, you know, not in lieu of closing the library, but would people be willing to pay to use the library? Because while we live in that senior, community, and there are people who don't have any other access to a computer than at the library, we also have to realize that we can't say, Kyle, we're gonna close you or you need to cover your services. Wes, it's one way or the other, and the library gets to stay open. That's not fair either. We have to figure out what that balance is. Personally, I would like the department heads to come back with rate proposals. Maybe it's including the hangars. I think we definitely need to look at those hangars. I think we need to look at the contract for any of the buildings that we have, the properties we have that we're renting, and how we better at least make those cover all of their own expenses, if not make a profit. I would like to see what our taxing options are. I would like to see a list of properties that we can sell. Let's pick the ones we need to pay for an appraisal, because we're going to have an expense before we can make a profit there.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's, you know, maybe we trim that down and we sell 14. I don't think we can raise the utilities anymore. I don't know if we can raise our solid waste fees at all. But if there was 50 cents there, I might push Paul out of the way and pick it up.
I'll let you.
So, you know, I mean, I think we need to examine every single department's rate.
Mm-hmm.
Our property tax, what can we do, what those methods are, our gross receipts tax, what those options are, the properties we can sell, and then we can come back and we can make a more concrete plan. If we were to make a decision today, my personal decision, and I realize this is a workshop, so we can't do that, the only service we can cut today and not impact anyone except an employee is the municipal court.
It's my understanding that the courts, that you would have to allow the courts to continue until the term of that official has expired before re-election or the next election. I don't know that's true. That's my understanding from a discussion with the judge.
And I think you're right, Roman. Mayor, this came up during my term as chief. It seems logical about having the magistrate, you know, you've got two entities, and the magistrate can do it. Of course, it will affect the employees of the court. So there's a lot of merit to that, and we need to look at that. And, of course, you talk to an employee of the municipal court, that's not good for them. But we're looking at the big picture. And I want to go back to Commissioner Luna's commentary. I align with everything she's saying. We really need you to tell us somehow the options of what needs to be increased. If the pool, I don't know about the library. I never heard of a library charging fees. I know they charge book fees, and they never get back that, even though they're late. But pool and the golf course, why can't they be self-sufficient and pay the fee? If you're interested, pay the fee. That is very logical. But all these, and I just looked at the gross receipt tax. As I showed you during the break, 7.125 is the maximum local tax they can add. Of course, that mean about 12 or 13%. I'm not saying go to that, but there is some wiggle room to increase that. Property tax, we covered that earlier. My calculations with George was around, if we made it 3 times what it is, it would bring in about $340,000, which is still a low rate. So we're not getting a whole lot there. It's just enough to operate the pool maybe. But we need figures, and we need to make a hard decision, and there are going to be some people upset. But hopefully they'll tell us where to get the money from to keep this thing going.
Mayor, Pro Tem, Commissioner, what I'd like to do is, in just a minute, open up the dialogue for the department heads, and let them talk about any suggestions, well, for anyone in the room, suggestions that they may have to increase revenue or reduce expenses. The one thing I did want to talk about was city services that we provide. for non-city entities. We provide law enforcement services to the village of Williamsburg. What they give us in return is $10,000 in cash and $20,000 of their law enforcement protection fund.
How much is their, sorry, how much is their law enforcement protection?
$20,000.
Okay.
So you're looking at $30,000 for law enforcement services for the private community. We do a lot of work, and I'm not trying to throw Williamsburg under the bus or anything. Just you gotta pay for what you're receiving. We provide a lot of work, water, wastewater, streets. We provide those services to Williamsburg. I've had several meetings since I've been here, whether it be with Jesse on a water, wastewater issue, with Benny on street issues. All this time that we're committing to this and involved in it, we're not compensated a penny for that. We're only compensated for the actual work that's being done. Well, there's a whole lot of planning and work that has to be done before a project actually gets constructed or initiated. All of that is, you're donating those services, time and services.
And
And
why are we
we're
doing
one deep. There's a lot of work that has to be done based on just the needs Commissioner Luna had mentioned that we should do and prepare to do with the commission. We're one deep everywhere. So it's just going to take time to make that happen and to get all that information. Because the city we still have to run a city. Animal control services, looking at the numbers of the other entities out there, is that hers or mine? Thank you. I thought I was getting shafted. Thank you so much.
Sonic's out of straws, though.
There are animal control services, just looking at the numbers that ours provided. The other entities don't have a lot of animals, and they're all paid, a different rate. However, if they had to create their own animal control departments and have their own animal shelter, it would be substantially more than what they're paying. So it's finding that balance of, not harming them, but at least charging what's necessary for the animal shelter and for animal control service. Right now, animal control is 100% coming from general fund dollars.
Bruce, when you got on board with the county, you saw the disaster at Serta and how every entity was paying different amounts and some entities were not paying anything. So it sounds like we need to come up with a similar pay scale for all of our services across the board and break that up and renegotiate those contracts. And I realize we're one deep, but we don't have the financial resources at this point to delay this at all. I mean, I feel bad that these guys are here and not working, because I know you guys have your own projects and you're going, oh my God, I have to get that done. And so that's why I'm not trying to say like this isn't important, but I know you guys have stuff to do, and we can sit here and beat this horse time and time again. And so, I mean, we need to find those revenue streams, but we're not gonna, I don't see where we're gonna do that sitting here saying, where are we gonna find it, where are we gonna find it?
Well, I think one thing we can look at, and probably should do, is have OJ and Kyle have some meetings with folks that go to the polls and have a discussion about what is a reasonable fee for the poll. Wes and OJ, same thing with the golf course. The animal shelter fees are
Very low.
extremely low, and they're part of addressing that in policy now, but we're taking animals, safekeeping animals, I mentioned this at the last meeting. If we were to take them to another shelter because we're full, we send them to Socorro or Las Cruces, we're looking at $20 a day. We don't charge anything for these animals.
And you are getting that addressed, correct, through policy,
Yes.
you know what we're talking about, okay.
All of our services that we're providing, within the city limits and for the entities outside the city, we're giving away those services at a much greater rate than we should. We just don't have the revenue to carry all the other intakes, and their services.
Mm-hmm.
I think renegotiating with Williamsburg is
Shut them down.
immediate. You can't de-annex. That's the whole flipping problem with our property north. You cannot de-annex. I would love to take Williamsburg over. They are not running their own municipality. They are a burden on us every day. And I don't care who reports that.
Mayor.
Poor Carol.
Bruce, the joint powers agreements we have with Williamsburg and the county for animal control and shelter, it's really underfunded. I mean, it's really, really low. That could bring in some revenue streams to support that and decrease our deficit. That needs to be looked at. I've wondered, I scratched my head when I read that thing, that we're actually doing it almost for nothing. And I know we want a no-kill shelter. That's the magic bullet for Tara. But what are you going to do with the animals? They're not accepting them sometimes, and they're just back on this, running loose and procreating. So we got to do something on that too. Shelters, unless you got millions and millions of dollars, cannot be no-kill. And there's just no way around it, or you let them loose. So I think all these things need to be negotiated. And all the user fees need to be worked on. And it needs to be self-supporting if possible, I think. And that's the only, I mean, hey, what are you going to do? You don't do that, you got to raise taxes. So it's one or the other. Or reduce services. So, we could talk about this all week, but we need to do something. Okay.
I don't think you can get away without increasing taxes to some extent. You're gonna have to increase taxes, you're gonna have to increase user fees. We really do need to revisit all of our agreements with everybody, all the other entities on the services that we're providing.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just take something with county mosquito spraying. We do all the mosquito spraying in Sierra County for them as well as the city.
Right.
David charges basically the time and materials. However, that's the bare minimum when you get into all of our other time that we're involved in working with the county or other entities on the mosquito spray.
We have to do surveillance, we have to go out there and check for cattle guards, everything else, we have to treat, besides the spraying, we also have to treat everything. Go out there and treat all the cattle guards and all stuff on the old highway and everyplace else. And the main thing is that I go to the veteran class course every year at Hollister. And everybody from this whole state goes there. And every one of them actually work for the county. We're the only ones that are a city entity that are spraying for the county. So, that's backwards.
There's,
And are we being compensated?
Mr. Aragon.
okay, user fees that we have and taxes and all those others, that we need to do. But there are some very, very modernistic ways to increase revenues. I'll give you an example with the police department. There are some states that I've been in where they actually, I don't know forgot how many wreck crashes we have a week. It's probably 5 or 10 at least. They actually charge, this was, they charge the insurance companies to work that, and there's some kind of system set up. It might be $300 per charging the insurance companies of both insurers. That does bring in revenue, and we brought in thousands and thousands of dollars. So there is very innovative ways to have each department come up with something like that would pass muster with the state.
Commissioner, are you talking about for the damage that they caused?
No, the actual, like say the chief's an officer works a wreck. You got Allstate and State Farm. They build for their services to work that wreck, and they pay it. They actually do pay it. And so that's just one way for the PD to do it. Just that will bring in revenues. But that's something we could work on down the road. Innovative, solutions, creative ways.
Mayor, I would like to really kind of open it up for discussion from everybody. see if they have any ideas. I know that, Jay and Ryan have been working on kind of a simpler way of tracking our facilities, and that may be a way to just open the board for the group discussion. If you guys want to kind of explain.
Sure. I'll speak real quick, and then I know Ryan's been working on it. But since I've been here, we've worked hard, and I've gotten a lot of support with working on the ball fields, the parks, Ralph Edwards, the golf course as well. These guys are professionals, and they've earned that right. In my mind, they worked hard to get these facilities in better shape. So they've earned the right to increase speed over it. They're professionals, all of them are. They're really good at what they do. So I'm passionate about that. Another thing is too, we're working on this. These are things we're working on. I sit on 2 committees. I sit on the Riverwalk feasibility study committee we're working on. I sit on a trails committee as well. These are things that will improve. These are long-term goals that will improve economic development and economic growth in Tier C. Tier C has a lot to offer when it comes to the outdoors, when it comes to the lakes and the rivers. We have to all think of ways as a community to increase our economic development, and we're working on it. It's interesting to sit on both sides. One of them, kind of geared towards a little more infrastructure, commercial development. One of them's more geared towards more recreation. But we may not have a choice in the future of which way we go, because we need to find a way to improve our economy here. I moved, not to get off track too much, but I moved away for 20 years. I came back here. This is not what I remember Tier C. It's just not. Maybe I was a kid. Maybe I looked at things differently, but we've kind of gone backwards, it seems, over the years. So with that, I'll shut up. What Ryan talks. So.
There's some programs that I've been kind of searching on regarding. We're really struggling with one, 2 guys in some departments. We're struggling. So I was looking at ways to utilize our time more efficiently and prioritize the things that need to be done. One of the programs that Angela and I are going to be sitting on tomorrow is it's an online system. You go onto the website, instead of bugging our clerks, and I'm having to, go and schedule everything and stuff like that. There's technology out there where you can go on your phone and you can see what parks are available, when it's available, how much it costs, and you can pay over the internet with a card. I know not everybody does that, but then that will take a huge burden off. I know Mr. Johnson does the same thing as well. I mean, this can be utilized for little to no cost, and it would take a huge burden off our staff. In addition to that, I think Ralph Edwards, since its renovation, has gotten a lot of popularity. So we've been looking at trying and maybe thinking about subdividing. We're getting kind of screwed by the farmers market, to be honest with you. In my opinion, what's happening is they're middlemaning us, and we're not getting any revenue, just maybe $100, $200. Well, they're charging their guys $10 per vendor, and it's actually causing an issue as well with more people that are wanting to be involved in the market, and they're bumping elbows trying to get spots. So I'm trying to plot out Ralph Edwards, so you buy a 10 by 10 section, or you buy the shelter, and it will be mapped and parceled accordingly, so that way they can have that space, and then the public can still enjoy the other uses. So there's
Sorry
a
to
lot of
interrupt,
work.
Brian. So right now for the farmer's market, a vendor pays $10
To the farmers market.
to the farmer's market, and the city doesn't see
And we
any.
get one rental agreement from the farmer's market, as opposed to utilizing the system like I was mentioning before. You can utilize that system, buy your plot for the $10,
Right.
and we get the $10 instead of, getting the shaft, and we're not getting anything.
Another thing that we want to implement on the parks rental agreement is we kind of want to redo it, because right now the fees are just set for one fee for different, for like the ball fields, for Ralph Edwards, Right now, we're not charging, we don't have anything set in stone for the rodeo grounds. And right now, we have, where they're using the RV stations right there, so that's something else that we want to include in the rental agreement.
What about the tennis courts?
The tennis courts, right now, we don't charge for it. That is something, I don't know if you guys want to. We tried to do that at one point in time, and it was just a big mess, so.
You have to go unlock it and nobody wants it.
Well, right now, actually, we have keys at the clerk's office and people sign them out. So I don't think it'd be anything different if we charge them. It's just you're gonna hear a lot of griping from the public.
You just said something. What if you had like a Tier C rec card and you paid, I'm gonna say $2,500 a year, and you got to use the tennis courts and the golf course and the library, which was free anyway, but kind of. So, and the swimming pool and the disc golf. What else am I missing? Something else. And you paid $2,500 and that was your card, and you scanned it every time you went in. And it was specific to you. So now they don't need keys. They use their city rec card.
With all due respect, I do value the quality of life aspect, and I go to many other municipalities, and I don't think that's going to be
No, I
in
understand.
our favor.
Does that mic work over there? Okay.
Yeah, it does.
Could you speak into the mic, Brian?
Yes.
I can't hear you.
St. Francis, I
No,
look
I-
at many communities, and I think once we start gouging like that, we're going to get a really negative feedback.
Well, but we're going to have to raise the fees across the board.
Understood.
So if we raise the fee and you got more, and you might never have, the golfer may have never been to the pool, but now he gets to go to the pool, we're not losing anything. He never went to the pool to start with. Now he's gonna go to the pool, and now he's gonna take his 3 friends who have never been to the pool, and they don't have a city rec card, and they pay the $5 we're gonna go to, or whatever. I mean, I just think it's a way to get people to use more of our services and not feel so gouged. You may be giving them more of something they never used, but it's a marketing.
Sure.
It's like the free steak knife that you never are going to use with that set. I like the online thing. Definitely. And we need to be charging for those RV spots. That was never intended for those to be free.
Yeah, definitely. I've gotten, what have we got, like 3 in the last month or 2,
Month,
with
yeah.
all the events from across the street. That's one thing that, Adam, and I'm very happy that we got passed in the last resolution, is our capability as managers to be able to communicate to our public that there are these services out there that they don't know about or they don't explore. So I commend you guys working hard on that and passing that, so that way we can let people know that we do have these services and events that are going on. Because I find it in other communities, I mean, there's movies in the park. They're not huge revenue generators, but it's something to get the public out and experience fun while we can still break even. I know it's not really in this realm of our discussion today, but there's a lot of things that we can do that we can break even and make a little bit of money. And that's what I think Bruce is why he's opening this up, is to allow everybody to really think outside the box and on how to generate this revenue. So.
Anybody else? Carol?
I would like to know, how can we tap into the rental market? I mean, I had to buy a house because there was nothing for rent. With the RV parks, anytime they build an RV park, the pool. We've got property, I know it's an investment up front, but, I mean, how can we tap into that? I mean, that's sustainable, it's long-term, it's, I don't know what all the facilities are for the RVers now, but what can we do to tap into that market? Because it's not going away. I mean, the housing market's not going away.
Yeah.
And again, there is nothing to it, very little, and it goes quickly.
There's big money in RV parks.
Well, we got land by a dam up there, we're looking for it.
Anybody
If you
else?
have any ideas, please speak up.
Chief?
Mine are not more, again, more mine is my advocacy for GRT, for public safety. The reason being is public safety is critical to everything that we talked about, including economic development. This police department has only 9, including myself right now. So I'm an overpaid patrolman, is really what I am. Because I answer calls for service, we don't have the number of officers that we need. Right now, we are, and so when we look at these types of cuts, I would tell you, I advocate for preserving public safety, because we do have, we also not only when we look at the recruitment side, we look at the retention side of it. How do we keep officers? So right now, the city does not have a tier system, so these officers can here 20 years and they pay the exact same amount, unless they promote to the one position that's available, and then there's a lieutenant position, and maybe eventually you will cheaper, and you get a little raise. And so we, city manager, Tringle covered it all when it comes to the services we provide. You know, $30,000 for the Lincoln Williamsburg, when we pay for one officer with benefits for that community. So we look at those type of things, the animal costs that we have. We just started scrolling that here a couple of weeks ago, and that's, I think, is a number that is going to be much higher than what we've been told now, mainly because I think there's more dog calls than there are other calls out there, and we're providing for the entire county out there. And so the other thing is that the gross receipts tax and public safety, when I look at that, I also look at how do we protect some of everything we've been talking about here, right? The infrastructure, the pools, the golf courses. We have no public safety surveillance system out there, not one. Facilities, something happens at the golf course, there's no camera, there's very little, but those are things that that public safety tax should be used to invest in, so we can protect some of these. You know, the guy came and did the donuts in the front yard, thank God that the neighbor across the street had surveillance, now we would have probably never done that. So those are the kind of things that I advocate for, because I really think everybody else is going up. Now, SCRTA is going to go up. I know that the jail is going to go up on the cost of housing. So we're going to feel a pinch there. We're going to have the city, the police department doesn't do very much fees. All we do is fingerprinting, and maybe we charge you for your report. That's about all we do, because everything else is, I mean, just a requirement that we have to provide. And so if we look at these, we are reaching out to other entities. The city manager, I do have been reaching out to, so we can see what our salary structure is in comparison to the other entities. But I also share those same concerns that I know we're going to have to trim the fat in a lot of these things, but I think sometimes you have to stop trimming the fat, and you have to, you know, go to others where we're talking about raising things, because we're not going to get these services for free. You just can't. I mean, you know, you can't balance a checkbook when you have no money in it. And so it's realistically, I support everything, you know, the majority has been said. I know it's tough decisions, but it has to be done. I mean, you brought up Commissioner Luna brought up Lordsburg, right? And, you know, Lordsburg has 9 officers. It's half our size. It's half our size. And they have 9 officers. And that's what we're working right now, is finding
Right.
3 days. And so this is, you know, we do what we can with what we've got, and it's, at some point there will be a tipping point, and if you can't provide those critical services, then you're not going to have the need.
Thank you, Chief.
Mayor. Yeah, Chief, which agree with everything you said about user fees. I don't know I forgot what the user fees were, but along with everybody else, you know, I like to say, you know, are we the Lone Ranger? What's the other cities doing? So you might look at the fees for a city our size. We might be not charging but 1/4 of the rate. As far as Williamsburg, the city manager mentioned, I remember a year or two ago, City Manager Madrid actually forgave the amount that they were supposed to pay for under the JPA, Joint Powers Agreement. I think it was $20,000, because they were really in the hole budgetarily. So they're claiming they don't have the money to even, you know, and we gave them back that money. We didn't charge them for that year. Do you remember that, Bruce? You don't? I think it was a year and a half ago. So they're claiming they don't. Am I right, Chelsea? Yeah. So you know, they're claiming they don't have the money, and we're saying we want to get some more money. So, you know, But, everything you said is, I agree with, but we need to come up and be creative and come up with the user fees that other cities are charging, and we might be paying the same amount, but we might not be.
That's a perfect example of them not having the money. Their property taxes are 1.705, so they would rather us increase our taxes, so they don't have to, and yet we
Right.
provide the services for them. And just one thing I want to clarify, with respect to salaries and the staff, this effort is not to cut salaries. This effort is to be able to get to a position where we can be a little more accommodating to our employees. Nothing disheartened me more since I've been with the city than a couple of weeks ago. We have an employee who has some health issues, who's been with us for 11 years, and that employee is making $13 an hour. That is unfortunate for the work that individual is expected to do. But he's not the lone ranger. We have several employees, lots of employees, that, and when we are in a position where we can have a salary study, it's going to suggest we are willfully underfunding our employees, underpaying them. If we don't get healthy financially, we will never be able to get the money to the employees and provide the services to the community. So we're doing the community a disservice, we're doing our staff a disservice. The only way to correct that is to generate revenue. We're not asking for the room, we're asking for the revenue that, if we're providing services to somebody, we're getting compensated for that service. Fairly. Not trying to take them to the cleaners, just fairly compensated for the time. It doesn't make sense that the county have an animal shelter, Williamsburg have an animal shelter, TRC have an animal shelter, and Alpha View. It doesn't. It makes sense to regionalize that. However, you gotta look at the cost. The city's absorbing 95 or thereabout % of the cost of that shelter. So we've got to look at a way that's more equitable for everybody. And yeah, some of the individuals are going to have to pay a little more. Well, that's just so, they're paying their fair share. Because if they had to create their own animal shelter or their animal control department, it would be very cost prohibitive for them to do. So it's regionalizing and just getting an equitable competition.
Well, you might remember this, when Williamsburg had a police department of one, and they shut it down, they said at that time that they would fund one position on the TCPD. And that was the agreement in the beginning. So it looks like we just did not increase the revenue needed to cover our expenses for that officer. But that was the original agreement that they would cover, because they only had the department of one. So when they shut it down, they said they would pay for one position within the police department. So we just need to go to them and make sure that.
Well, it's not paying for one.
No,
doesn't
it's
even
not.
pay
We
for a
just-
car.
No.
It's just one individual.
They're giving us
We just
LAPF
need to
money. That's it.
renegotiate.
They're giving us the LAPF, which is 20,000.
Plus $10,000 cash is what Bruce said a minute ago.
They're giving,
So 30,000.
30,000 is what they're, what we're,
Except
right.
last,
I thought it was 20,000.
20 in LAPF fund.
Right.
And 10,000 cash.
I thought they're giving us 20,000 cash,
Well,
and the
what
jail.
I, what
No?
I would
They
like,
were giving it 20,000, but.
That's what I'm
they didn't have- So they didn't have it in their budget, they cut it to 10,000.
Okay.
and then they-
See, that's what I'm saying. They were giving us 20.
They weren't gonna
They
have
were.
that money at all.
When did we forgive, I know with 1 year, we just told them, don't give it to us.
That's what she just said.
They gave us, they always gave us money, but they cut it back to 10,000.
Okay, I didn't know that.
that was
Okay.
at 20 at one time, and they cut it back to 10.
Okay.
because They
It
didn't
was
have
last
the 20.
year, wasn't it?
Last year, I
Yeah,
think
okay.
what it was.
Yeah, it was 20 and 20.
Contract moving forward, correct? It's-
So we reduced it half, okay, I got you.
And when did we just sign that contract?
It was like a 4-year contract, I want to say, so it was signed last year.
Yeah, okay, got it.
So the city eats the cost of inmates that are arrested. The city eats the liability, the equipment,
Mhm.
the training, the officer's time, What you're not funded on is the chief's time involved in this, my time on this. They want a chief to come, to come to commission meetings
Right.
or trustee meetings and report to them. All that's uncompensated. The law enforcement services in general are uncompensated. Not trying to take them to the cleaners, but if they were to create their own police department, bare minimum, they're gonna have, they want 24-hour service, which is what they have with us. It's gonna be a couple $100,000.
Is there means to go, do we have within that contract a means to give them 30-day notice to pull out of the contract and give them money, prorate that out and say, go find your own or build it yourself?
I think it's in there.
I can't imagine us signing a contract that we didn't have an out on, right?
This JPA has that.
So, I mean, tell them, we can't do it for what you're giving us.
Raise your property taxes.
We are not going to fund the village of Williamsburg any longer. Either come up with your own police department or call the sheriff.
I agree.
There, I mean,
Well, I would like to say that we work at trying to figure out what it's actually costing us to operate and present them with these fees and say, we can't do anything less than this because this is what it's costing us, the city, and you guys are sitting here looking good because we're doing all the work for nothing.
Well, and that's
So-
24-hour care.
But so again, you know, some of you department heads, as the chief, is going to have to sit and figure out what does it actually cost the city of Tier C to provide law enforcement services, dog catcher, police, inmate care, whatever that's gonna cost that comes out of the village of Williamsburg, and just present it to them. They can either do it again, pay it, or they can pull out of the services, and like Commissioner Luna stated, create their own or ask the sheriff to do theirs. Again, we just have to know, such as David, spraying for mosquitoes. What is it costing you, manpower,
The manpower and the material, the gas, that's personnel.
well, again, that.
We have to have so many people, you can't expect our 4 guys to do this every single time, but maybe 12-hour days, 14-hour days, 3 times a week, or whatever was required of us to do, and expect us to do that every year.
And
You have to
again-
have the personnel to man that.
And again, this stuff needs to be in paper, in writing, and then it needs to be presented by the manager to these entities, such as Elephant View, such as the county, such as the village of Williamsburg. We need to make money.
I do that with the building, actually, break everything down, vehicle use, the mileage that we actually spray, the non-chemical that we spray, and then I want to say, actually, every single month we get a bill that breaks it down for what we do for the county.
You charge your fee or your hourly rate, all your time along in scanning and.
Admin fee.
we need to.
Yeah, see, we need to put admin fees into everything that we do, because administratively, we have to take care of that.
Right.
And so,
we charge them like something like $1,200 for an entire year, but now it's up to about $6,000 to $7,000 to $8,000 right now, and they got shit they but it would increase almost if I put out all the additional time that we need. If I would go up another almost half of double.
Well, but see, you
You
need.
present it and
Yeah.
they pay, or they can increase it.
But that's what it's costing us.
Right.
When you factor all the costs, that's what it's costing us. And we should sell for nothing less.
Right.
That's right.
Exactly.
I almost wonder, and I think the mayor brings up a very valid point, how many people from Williamsburg or Elephant View are using the pool? And the golf course, and the library? Because we're not being compensated at all for those. I mean, if they're living in Williamsburg and they buy a yearly pass and they don't use it 54 times a year, then yes, we're making money, but I wonder I would like to know. I think that is a good thing to track, because you are getting those even lower property taxes of living in Williamsburg and the services of Tier C at our expense. And if we cut those services, who are we truly hurting? And not that the people in Williamsburg aren't the people of Tier C, but in the grand scheme of things, they're not.
Yeah, but if they're looking and they're gonna say, oh, I'm gonna go live in Williamsburg and pay lower property taxes and then utilize all this stuff of Tier C,
Because
we're getting the
you're not
shaft.
buying groceries in Elephant Butte.
Right.
I mean, even the people who live there, they only go for eggs to the dollar store when they only need eggs. They're not getting all their groceries at the dollar store.
It's the police agreement.
30 days notice by either party can terminate the day pay the fine.
That's for the police. The same thing holds true with the animal control.
But again, that's what we need to do, is we need to track. I know that once we set up a system, we can track it from here on out and know exactly what it's costing us and what we're being paid. Because again, if we can get our money, get our fees, get our administrative fees for doing the services and providing that, then, you know, then we're bringing money in. And we're taking care of at least a little bit of, you know, our financial end of it.
Well, and maybe they don't start pitching in for the pool, but we have it as leverage when we go to negotiate the police contract. Like more than half of it, it's more than half of Williamsburg residents that use our pool. You're not paying for that. Why are you arguing paying an extra $10,000 for police services? Do you want us to say that Williamsburg wants to defund the police? Because that's what's gonna happen. But who cares if they defund the pool? I mean, think about it in the public appearance way. I mean, we know how many utility users we have in Williamsburg. We should know how many calls we are responding to in Williamsburg.
And again, when we lease these, you know, like the university out there, we should figure in what it's costing us for the services, for utilities, for trash, for, you know, whatever's out there, before we just put down a fee for a lease agreement. You know, we need to at least break even. It shouldn't cost us anything, and especially if they're renting these extra rooms, and then they're making money, and, you know, we're paying for everything. I mean, you probably have to go out and clean the buildings.
Service air conditioning, heating system.
Yeah.
On our dime.
So, see, all of that should be figured into the lease agreement, and either they take it or they leave it, you know? I mean, we'll find somebody that will do it.
How much were they, how much were they paying for the civic center when they were there?
Yeah.
And I remember we moved them out there so we had something in that building and it didn't sit there and rot, so I think we maybe gave them the moon so we didn't lose the building and it didn't become vandalized because of where it is. But I think it's time to say, okay, thank you, we need to now move this from a gift into a profit, and you either need to start subsidizing us for your subleasing, or we are going to become the ones who rent out the classrooms. And that is where our rental income comes from, because I am a sophomore, and it is good.
One of the things that we need to, and we need to work this out internally, we're charged for our calls for service through SCRTA. And our utilities now are called out through SCRTA. And there is a boatload of those calls. So the way the SCRTA is compensated is the county's GRT, 95% of the GRT goes to SCRTA. But everything above and beyond that's needed for their budget comes from the entities, and that's broken down by the percentage of calls for service. Well, our calls have gone through the roof, and a lot of that is animal control, and I don't know that we can get around that. But all of our utility calls are going through SCRTA now. 8 to 5, Monday to Friday, I have no idea why we're having those calls go through SCRTA. After hours, maybe that's the best place for those calls. I don't know. But when we have staff working, calling the dispatch center and notifying us of an utility issue doesn't seem like the best arrangement for us.
So why don't you run a public service announcement campaign
So,
on the local radio station saying, do you have a utility problem from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday? Call this number. After hours, call this number.
and we would dispatch ourselves then in that case, with Commissioner Luna saying, if they call, am I hearing that, Bruce?
If they call
Rather
the
than-
utility office during hours, we dispatch ourselves.
That's what I mean, that sounds, that can happen, right?
Oh, and that's what it should be.
We pay about $300,000 a year, don't we, for SCRTA? 290, something like
It's
that,
close to 200,000 this year.
200 a year.
And with our calls for service increasing because of utilities,
Mhm.
animal control calls, I had a conversation with the chief a couple of days ago. They get more calls for animal control than they do for law enforcement
Yeah,
services.
it's true.
All of the calls for animal control go through
Dispatch.
And why not call the
Well,
building? For animal control? Yeah, there's somebody there for animal control.
Well, I guess it's ran through you guys, that's why.
well, it would have to go to the PD or the shelter.
They say, call dispatch.
Yeah, they do. And the PD would be getting the call is in one person at the desk. And, I mean, that's doable. You'd have to check it out, but I don't know how many calls that would save, but they do, you're right.
Depends, I mean, is it worth our time? How much are we paying?
I'm paying 200,000.
Yeah, can,
Two employees.
yeah.
Well, the issue is you have to provide that service 24/7.
Right,
So you're looking at 2-3 shifts.
right.
By the time the police department dispatched the police department, and the sheriffs dispatched the sheriffs, and the state police dispatched the state police.
Right.
And they were all separate offices, all separate places, and it was a nightmare when there was a big problem.
So you got 16 hours during the week
I am that old.
that,
Thank you for making me feel it.
And yet, for us to set up our own dispatch.
Yeah.
center
The senior person?
right.
in emergency services, it would cost us more than 200,000.
Yeah, it definitely would.
We're not making anything doing that.
Yeah, we're,
We just need to,
Reduce the number of calls for service so we receive it. And it doesn't make sense calling utilities calls, calling dispatch for that, particularly 8 to 5 Mondays and Fridays. We can kick around the other hours, or maybe sort of is the best answer for that. I don't know at this point. But paying for, when we have staff working in all of our offices, whether it be at the billing, whether it be at water calls go to water, and wastewater, electric calls go to electric, but I don't know the answer to that. But I think we could come up with a better solution than
would be,
we're doing now.
well, even if there was an after-hours number and whoever's on call has to call and check that number,
yeah. Because you got
it would still be free.
8 hours a day, Monday through Friday, we're there. The weekend, we're not there, so you got those empty hours.
Already paying someone for standby time.
Yeah, it could save some money.
And it could be put on our website, and it could be put on a Facebook page that, I mean, again, if we're open for services, like you said, Monday through Friday, call the department, and then have someone that could answer calls. You know, each person would have a different day or a different week or a different evening, you know, on-call person, and have them, you know, answer those calls. And again, that would save us some money.
If you have one number that you call.
Correct.
And we go to that number, and whoever carried it at that time is, you know, responding to the call, or at least address the call.
Every little bit
We have
helps.
some options, and I'd certainly like to talk to the staff about the best solution for that problem. The paid SCRTA is costing us extra money that we shouldn't have to pay.
Right. And if the water's not gushing in the sky, that's not the best use of resources there. I mean, if they are trying to tell someone how to give somebody CPR on one line, they don't need to be dealing with poor little Miss Susie who, the water's running out in front of my house. That's not what they need to be focused on. Sorry.
If they have the number, we can, forward it to their phones, standby has, city take
That's what I
cell
was
phone.
thinking.
Right.
When we get the call log, I don't recall, and Jesse, you may recall, but when we get the call log, I don't know that it specifies the time that the call came in. just has the day, and they have the time on it, I just missed it.
The forms that my guys get shows the date, the time that it was
On the
cleared.
map from Skirta that they
Oh,
sent
yeah.
out monthly.
I didn't recall
Bless
seeing
you.
it like inside either. So they just put the date and then there might be 40 calls that day, you know, and they're just all dated the same.
So if we had a one number for them to call, and if no one's available after hours, it'd be forward, but we have standby staff all the time. in each department.
So if we had a number, we just designated one of our lines for utility calls.
It does have the time.
Pardon?
It does have the time.
Does it?
On the gas station at 2:42.
Yeah, we can have it, them call the office number to whichever department, and then you could forward that to the cell phone. So it's really easy to do that.
Look at us solving a problem today. Don't y'all feel accomplished?
Oh, every little bit helps.
One. We got one problem.
It all, getting to that 2 to 2.5 million that we need.
Mayor, for them, Commissioners, I just want to jump back to the property tax increase and just something for you guys to consider. Obviously, revenue, economic development, that's a good source of revenue. We have a lot of vacant properties in this town, some of which have vacant houses. People that are living out of state, living out of town, they aren't interested in doing much with these properties. They aren't paying much for property tax, so they can write a little check out every year and not develop, not sell. I've got people calling my office a lot of times looking for properties to sell, or to buy, and there's just not much out there. People that have them in New York or California or wherever they are, they're pricing them unrealistically. I think by increasing those property taxes, those out-of-town people, they're gonna start looking at these properties and they're either gonna develop, or they're gonna sell, or they're gonna rent, they're gonna put them back out there. I know you're gonna get to get back from people that talk about some of these properties are in bad shape, but I think having all of the code enforcement go back over to the police department, where they have the ability to implement the fines and citations, which is something that I didn't have, I think, plus the person that's out there for code enforcement now is on top of it. I think that those are some little revenue generators, but the biggest thing, the property tax, these vacant, and right now, they're vacant. Apartment building areas, there's vacant houses, some of them in decent shape, they could easily be rehabbed. You know, increase their property tax, they're either gonna clean it up or they're gonna sell it.
But we do have to go to vote for property tax, correct?
I believe so.
But GRT, we do have wiggle room where we can, the commission can implement that.
Just take an ordinance for that, for the GRT, it just takes an ordinance, right?
Some of them.
Well, no, I'll take an ordinance, but some of the taxes have to be due, and I'm not sure which increments are still available for the municipality, but some are through referendum, some are at the pleasure of the commission.
Well, and it just makes, like we were talking, it just makes more sense, at least with GRT, with putting the hit more on visitors rather than our own people by raising tons of property taxes. At least they're stopping in and giving fuel or food, not food, clothes.
Well, if they stop at McDonald's or
Right.
Subway, they're paying it. Madam Mayor, I think it might be a good idea for the commission to write a letter to those property owners who have those vacant properties and say, the city of TRC is experiencing a growth, and we do not have enough rental properties. The sales market is off the charts. Properties are selling for far more than they should be or are valued at. And you know, now may be the time to come to TRC and look at your property and see if you don't want to take advantage of the growth we are experiencing. And it might, you know, strike them as we care about their financial well-being, and maybe they sell that property and maybe they rent it, but maybe they just put money back into it. I mean, Airbnb is an amazing thing. You know, they could rent it outright, work with the chamber, work with the local realtors association, but there's got to be
something that we can do as a governing body to encourage those property owners within our community to,
Well, and even letting them know, like, about the housing authority, there's, go to the housing authority and sign your house up, and they'll rent it tomorrow.
yeah, they don't have enough properties to rent.
And then you're guaranteed the money.
That might be something that we can do as, because we do, I mean, when I deliver the paper Friday mornings, I see those places, and there's tons of them.
Chief?
Mayor, just because I've experienced this before in smaller communities, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to enhance economic development, right? And so, in addition to what the commissioner and Tracy stated, there's another thing that a lot of communities have enacted is a vacant building ordinance that charges these vacant buildings by the square foot, 25 cents, was one that I saw recently, 25 cents a square foot, it's residential and commercial. And what that does is the commission says, if you try to assist them in trading out, but when you have those individuals that want to leave that building vacant and don't, there's something incentive for them to do it.
Right.
And so that does help. And I know some, you can go back, I believe the city of Benton passed one last year. They were only charging $25 a year, and they changed that to 25 cents a square foot. So, I mean, just to drive that, to get people, to put these properties to use.
Thank you, Chief. Well, at this time, I think I'll go around the room, starting over here with Wes. Do you have any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, ideas, thoughts?
OJ out.
Here you talk.
OJ talked earlier.
Does he want to talk again?
Yeah, I'm gonna get with, members that we do have in the golf course and people that come there all the time and talk about raising the rates a little bit. I'm a big bunch. I don't wanna put us out of business and try to compete with SDR's prices.
Right.
They've lost a lot of business faster than what they've done. And we've gained some of that business. So I think it's just going to be trial and error and try to figure out what's going to be the best solution. The golf course is improving, so therefore it stands to reason that we can raise the rates a little bit. They're not playing on dirt no more, they're playing on grass. So it's not flooded. It's not flooded. But yeah, I think it's okay to go time and put something together and then come back for you guys and see what we can do.
Thank you. Ms. Pat?
I think there's a basic misunderstanding that needs to be addressed. First of all, yes, the library provides free services to the public. The state's paying us about $45,000 a year to provide those services. This is not something the city's providing.
$179,000 worth we are though, Miss Pat.
That is payroll, and yes, you're right.
So we've got to weigh that.
Well,
I think that's where we are. That's where we feel like we are right now. It's not that we don't think you're providing anything. It's that we don't want to cut one service and not look at every other option. We can't just take library off the table. Yes, but I wanted you to know where we were.
I understood where we were, that's what I'm trying to explain. In order to charge for library services, the first thing we would have to do is tell the state we don't want their aid, keep it. And so then we would lose the grant and aid and the general obligation fund. We would have no funding other than what we have from the city. And frankly, you might as well close the doors.
Thank you, Ms. Pat.
Ms. Pat, will you remind me one more time how many people are we servicing at the library? How many people are coming and using services at the library?
Give a daily rate.
Right now, it's down real low because of the COVID disruption. Usually, in a normal year, which we haven't had for about a year and a half, we get 85 to 100 people a day, 250 days. this is a well-used library. Like I say, use is down right now because people are scared.
So you're saying 30 people a day?
Yes.
Okay.
And people are starting to forget. This has grown since we opened everything up. It's grown from maybe 5 or 6 people a day to we're getting 55, 60 people a day. So the people are coming back to the library.
Good. Thank you.
I can, if it would help, give any or all of you a copy of the rules out of the state administrative code governing what the library has to do to keep their state aid.
I'd like a copy. Yeah,
I can do that. If we do a lunch hour, I can go make copies of it all the
Thank you. Mr. Andy?
Well, once a year, every July, there's a 5% increase on residential and commercial trash. The collection center was opened up back in 2013, 2014. I haven't raised the rates there. It's still the same thing. There's other ways to generate revenue within the sanitation department, but it takes money to start the revenue line.
Thank you.
I work for the food service center, the food service center, so there's really not a lot more that we can do to raise revenue there because we just service the city. So,
Thank you. Carmen?
Okay, I'm not sure the customers have mentioned putting in a flat rate for the inventory department. And encourage them for their cash citizens. That is the only thing
Ms. Carol? Sorry.
I would like to see more activities for not just, because right now, I'm retired, I came back here. The only place to go dancing is a bar. You know, you can't take families there. And I know when they have family events or dances, you know, you grew up where kids were sleeping in the barn or whatever. I would just like to see us have more events if we could. Of course, that's what's hard to do coordinator. But just more activities for people that don't always do outdoor stuff or.
And the city putting those on?
Yes, for a cost. Yeah, I mean, people would come, yeah. I mean, if you're one that goes and follows the bands, people go with the bands.
Our department has one up there,
Well, that's it.
See, you raise some money, don't you?
Ms. Tracy, do you have anything else you'd like to add? Thank you. David?
Yeah, as far as the citizens are concerned, we do provide a lot of services. Nothing for religious programs, governmental use, the nonprofits have price. I know you already price increase across the board, but senior use they use for free, and they take up most of the day. But I would like, and also we have AV equipment, audio equipment, that we don't really charge for the audio, but we don't charge for the video use. Maybe something we can actually charge for that. Now for the, we also have an office space. A lot of it used to be used for workforce solutions, that's there. It's not being, given use or something. We already spoke about the Garden Learning Center. The Lee Bell, we have the Spaceport Visitor Center. And we also have 2 office spaces there that are not really on the ranch library, is not being utilized as far as revenue. It'd be nice for somebody who wanted to rent that space along with the visitor center as far as the spaceport is concerned. Maybe somebody wants to do that. But we also have the Geronimo Springs Visitor Center there as well, which is basically the same thing as Chamber of Commerce. And I don't think they're running that.
I don't know, I thought we were just donating.
Yeah, we're just donating that again.
Yeah, it's free.
Space that can be used to utilize money. And using that prime opportunity being the Spaceport Visitor Center. So I think there's some use there.
How much does the chamber pay for the use of the end of the annex?
Nothing. No,
Yeah, I don't think they can.
zero.
Could we utilize that office space for something else and move the chamber next door to the visitor center so there is one location? And before the, Workforce Solutions, we did have someone who was set to book activities at the Civic Center and bring events, and that was even before Normal Things Week. Lane Cash was in that place, and he did just that. He booked dances and events in the Civic Center. And if we could come together with some kind of package where we have classrooms and we have, usable spaces, we could have conferences here. And we could put heads on beds and increase our lodger's tax and give more money to the golf course and the chamber and utilize that. But that's one of those things where we have to spend money to make money. And I'm all about that, but we have to be able to do that, and we can't even cover where we are today.
But these are suggested ideas that could be put into a plan that you could sit down with the group, and our manager and our finance director, and come to an agreement of what we need to do. I mean, again, we can't continue giving things for free, just because they're this or that or the other. So this is the plan, and these are ideas and thoughts, and we need to bring them together and come up with, a way to make them work for us.
And Madam Mayor, I have a question. You said that we rent the Civic Center and we don't charge for religious purposes either?
Yeah, I think the religious events, they do those for free. Yeah, no, they charge.
I think they charge for everything.
The only thing we don't charge
Because government use.
is governmental use, is the only thing we don't charge for. And the senior event, they don't pay anything.
See, that's what's good to be a senior, so you don't get charged.
I'm getting my senior card, Amanda.
Thank you, David. Chief, do you have anything else?
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and Commissioners, for allowing us the opportunity to speak to you. And for me, thank you for being open-minded and realistic. And the bottom line is realistic to knowing what situation you're in and then recognizing the fact that decisions have to be made and you recognize that. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Mr. Benny? Just spend it, right? Perfect. That would help. Yeah, that would work. Sonia?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I think Benny's department is probably one of the departments that's been hit the worst by our current practices. Our streets are horrible.
Yes, they are.
They are horrible. It's no reflection on the street department. They can only work with the money that they have available to them. And we don't fund it. I mean, bare minimum is all he gets. Salaries, he gets some state funding for some road projects. Otherwise, he has nothing to work with.
Right.
And you get the brunt of all the conflict with the conditions of the road. Those are the things we've got to get him some revenue so that he can make some improvements to our streets and not have to rely on grant funding. I get a kick out of it. People will say, you guys are doing this all backwards. You need to get the funding for the water and wastewater first. Then you get the funding for the streets. Grant funding doesn't work like that. There's no timing to it.
Right.
It would be nice to say, oh yeah, we've got it all nailed out. We're going to get first the funding for the water and wastewater, then we'll go in after that's done, make the improvements to the road. I don't know what the misnomer is out there in the community, but they really are hounding Benny and the street department, as well as water and wastewater, for the same issue. Funding doesn't come that way. We've got to have some money. We've got to have some skin in the game ourselves for the street department. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Not a problem.
And Benny, our streets aren't near as bad as Williamsburg. I know, my car thank you every Friday morning.
Well, and I thank you for the work you did and do all the time. I do remember last year after we had that severe flooding, in fact, it was a year ago, almost a week ago, and, our alleys were pretty bad. I did have a lot of people talking about, our alleys were just kind of washboardy and runoff and whatnot, and I know we did a lot of fixing that up, we do thank you. Thank you every day. Sonia? Thank you. Chelsea?
Just kind of going off of the Williamsburg and the animal shelter. I don't know if you guys know this, but like Elephant View pays a monthly fee of $1,100, and then they pay $30 or $50 for each call out for the animal control. And Sierra County pays $3,000 a month and then $30 each call out. But Williamsburg doesn't put into that at all for the animal shelter or their call out for the animal control.
Is that listed as
It's in the contract.
item under the JPA?
It's the way it- It's why it was written that way. That's why we're doing it. That could be looked at like everything else.
So again, these are items that we need to look at and suggestions that need to be brought up. Again, if there's something that we've missed and it needs to be brought to the table and to the attention of the commissioners and the manager, we need to work on those. We need to renegotiate. We need to look at ways to bring money into the city. And so again, that's why I'm asking each and every one of you questions.
Williamsburg doesn't have a lot of animals that we shelter. However, we shelter their animals. So it's space at our facility.
Correct.
It's staff time, it's money, it's liability insurance, vehicle insurance, the whole nine yards.
Thank you. Do we have any questions, comments? No, you don't? Okay. Tara?
Everyone kind of knows that we take in animals from everywhere, and we're not getting a whole lot from what we should be. It costs us about $20 a day to take care of one animal, and we should be getting a lot more. One of the biggest things that we're looking into is our bite cases that come in. It's our 10-day quarantine. They bite somebody or another animal on the street, and we have to house them for a minimum of 10 days. We don't see a penny from it. So that's something that I'm trying to pull up from other shelters, not just in New Mexico, but in the entire country, to see what they charge for so that we can get that. I mean, if someone isn't responsible to get rabies on their animal, we shouldn't be housing them for free, I think. So we're looking into that. There's also a lot of repeat offenders, so to speak, when it comes to stray animals. We charge one fee flat, whether they're there for 1 day or 5 days. And then if they come in once or 14 times within a year, it's the same fee no matter what. And a lot of shelters across the country, they have a first offense, a second offense, and a third offense. And a lot of places are even charging per day on top of the offense. So that's something that I'm looking into. I don't want to go overly high because I know a lot of people in the town are older, they are on fixed income, but if I have to have an animal for 5 days because they can't get them, we shouldn't be penalized. Well, and like we said earlier, everywhere else has the same people that are retired and don't have that, but we can't.
Okay. Tara, when we had the lady who was attacked by those dogs, we changed the policies regarding that. And I thought we had a fee associated with those kinds of cases.
There is, it's called the Dangerous Dog Ordinance, and it's $100.
So why are we not charging that?
I don't know. It does say in our current SOP that there is a boarding fee, but when I first started, there was no boarding fee cost. It was just the adoption fees and what we charge for shots and vaccinations, but nothing.
And Tara, when you say a dog that bites, does that bite another dog, bites you? What are you talking about?
Either one.
Either
They
one.
can either bite a person or another animal, and then we have to house them.
I would assume when it gets bit by a human, then the courts would get involved.
Yeah, and that's where it's held up for.
Yeah.
But I thought they had, the way we wrote that I thought that they had to pay that fee to get the dog. It wasn't by the judge saying, okay, now you have to pay this fee.
So
If
it
I
goes,
remember
it
correctly.
goes through the clerk's office. They have to go through the courts and get all the paperwork. The dog has to be spayed or neutered. They have to have their vaccinations, and then it's an annual fee of $100 each year that they have it. And then, like, if say the dog passes or something, then they notify us, and then we won't charge them.
That's to keep the dog, a
That's
dangerous
to
dog.
keep it, yeah.
But
To
if
keep it
we
alive.
housed that dog during that time, I thought there was an associated cost.
Yeah, like who pays for that 10-day quarantine? That owner should not get that is
Well,
crazy.
see, this is something that we're suggestion and ideas, and thank you for checking into that and looking into that, but that is something that we need to, bring to the attention and change it.
Yeah.
It's a policy, so any suggestions or ideas that would increase fees for particulars like that need to be drafted and brought to the commission to review so that we can adopt it and go forward. Again, shoulda, woulda, coulda, that's what my daddy used to say. And so, we just can't look back. We need to move forward and continue on and adopt our policies the right ways. Okay? Thank you, Tara. Jesse?
There's a lot of stuff that we could do, to help subsidize some of the income for the water, and wastewater. Our connection fees, are extremely low. Talked about that, numerous times. That's for new houses to connect. We charge them currently $650, which doesn't even cover my costs of parts and labor and everything to do that.
650?
75.
$675, okay.
So what is your proposal? What does it cost you? If that's not what it costs you, what does it cost you?
So realistically, most areas have about a $2,000 new connection fee. And then it steps up incrementally for, whatever size difference you want from there. But $2,000 would be your initial cost to tie in for water, and $2,000 for wastewater. So that would be one way to, at least cover some of, taking my guys out of the field to do a new connection and losing money on the work that day. One of the other items that we could look at is replacing all the water meters. Currently, we have about a 24% water loss annually, and we could probably knock that down about 10% more just by replacing our water meters. That's another one of those projects, though, where you've got to have money to, invest initially. But 10% of our gains would come back relatively quick. So, and if we went with AMI meters, you'd get more accurate readings. You wouldn't have to have somebody out in the field to do your.
You're making me
reading.
twitch using that AMI, sorry.
Yeah, well, the good thing is that the foundation for it's already in place. So, we don't have to do any extra.
We have an appeal process already in line.
Impact fee rates, I don't know if we can adjust that, or if that's something that's set through the engineer. I never worked directly on those, so I don't know. But just.
Impact fees, some of those were just reviewed and looked at, they went to increase that in 2007.
One of the areas that we absolutely are losing a lot of potential on is not having commercial and residential split between our water and wastewater customers. Right now, it's the same for across the board, whether you run a multi-million-dollar business or, Joe Schmo, that just uses 5 gallons of water a month. They pay the same rate, so there's a lot of potential loss right there.
Jesse, in most municipalities, the water service separate commercial and residential
And industrial.
and industrial.
Yes. Yeah, there's usually 3 classifications.
And we don't.
And we don't. We just have one. We have 2 classifications. We have commercial and residential, but they're the same rate. There's no difference. So we need to adjust that to where your commercial businesses are paying the commercial rates versus the residential rates.
Don't forget about those who live in commercial homes, who we're going
Yeah.
to fight that, because by God, I live in the back of my art gallery. And
Mayor,
it's really my home.
Madam Mayor.
Commissioner Aragon.
Jesse, as we talked about earlier, to all sections, please look at other cities our size, so when we have to make that decision, we don't feel like the Lone Ranger.
Yes.
That's my interest.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
One of the other things that we don't do that I've never seen a city not do is standby fees for vacant lots. If they have a vacant lot where there's sewer and water adjacent to the property, they should be charged a standby fee just to have that service. And this will also kick the heels and light fires for people to do something with those lots instead of just sitting on them. Because all of a sudden there's, oh, I gotta pay this
Vacant lot fee.
yeah, vacant lot fee and a standby fee. It's gonna get people motivated to do something instead of just standing around waiting for the property value to go up. So those are just some of my ideas.
Thank you, Jesse. Ryan, do you have any?
Are you gonna skip me like OJ?
Could you speak up?
I
can't-
You have to talk again.
Mayor, I can't hear him at all.
You need to speak up.
You gotta speak up, I can't hear you.
Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners.
Put a little closer to the mic.
I don't even know.
I wanna hear you, Hello, mic check. I know.
We're quiet, we can hear you.
Okay, go ahead. We gotta hear you. I know, but
No, just a couple of things to touch up on. We also do the cemetery. We do all the burials and backfilling, and that's been a pretty big burden. Looking at some of the other municipalities, there is a little bit of a rate increase that we can do, especially for the weekends. Coming out, it takes two people to do those things. So I'll be looking at some pricing, and there'll definitely be some increases on that portion. Like mentioned before, I mean, we have so many amenities that are just sitting there not being utilized that we can really take a look at and let the public know, hey, these are available, so that way we can start generating that revenue. All the contracts, like Angela mentioned, we are working on those for park specific. Some parks have electricity, some have water, some have neither. So we're going to go each park and get a contract, and hopefully we can initiate the online system that we would like to utilize, and I think that would save us a lot of time on our back end as well. So we will be looking at those. Kyle could utilize it for scheduling at the pool instead of taking calls. I mean, there's so much administrative assistance out there that we need to utilize. So if you guys have any questions or comments or anything for me, be more than happy.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
And we appreciate you staying on top of things. Kyle?
Yeah, so as far as the pay rates, I'll definitely get with OJ and probably do some public outreach, just see what would be comfortable. And would you guys recommend also changing prices on the passes as well, if we're going to go ahead and increase the
That would be
fees?
something we would probably consider too, so kind of work that into your plan also.
Okay, for sure. Also, what about sponsors at the pool? Like, we have a lot of local businesses who might be interested in like advertising on the fences. We could reach out to them, maybe do like an annually fee, get some signs made, something like that.
That would, yeah, I don't think that would be a problem.
Awesome. And also, one thing that I think would really help us out is during the summer season, I think we really need to expand our hours. We're open from 8 to 5, and those are usually the working hours, but if we opened up a little earlier at 7, closed a little later, probably around 7 as well, we'd be able to bring in probably some families later in the evening.
Especially in the summertime, because it gets dark at 8:30.
Yeah.
9 o'clock.
Yeah, we still have lights at the pool, though, so we could even do like night swims and things like that. Yeah.
And people would love that, and also birthday parties. I know a lot of people like to have birthday parties and whatnot there, so there would be a money generating.
We do pool rentals at the moment, and we have had a lot of interest in those. right now, for 2-hour use, which is the minimum for the facility, it costs $120. So, I mean, that's a heck of a deal. We might want to try increasing that as well. Like I said, I'll talk to OJ about all these. And one other thing about the expanding of the hours, it will take more staff. I won't be able to do it with 3 or 4 people. So we'll probably need a little bit closer to 6 during some time, but we can work on that. That's it. And maybe hosting some like swimming competitions, trying to get some of that stuff going locally. I don't think we'll be able to do any actual competition swimming because our pool's a little longer than 25 meters, but it would be fun. We have a poolside basketball hoop. I know people love basketball tournaments, you know, so we could try all that kind of stuff and just see how it goes.
Water polo.
Water polo.
Same thing.
Had to do it. Yep.
So if you did increase your employees in the summertime, and could you utilize the workforce solutions and get?
I imagine that's something we could do. I'd have to look into it. I know a lot of other pools really focus on high school age kids, bringing in the high school age kids. I'm sure that would be an option for us. So.
What about a contract with the high school to let them use the pool or, get, something?
Yeah.
I mean, there's your bread and money right there.
And see, all of these are ideas again to look at, and so, as we continue to talk and bring up ideas, another idea will pop up. So anything you can add to generate money or income is helpful, and we could put all of this into a plan and go forward.
Does the high school pay to use the golf course?
The golf course?
Yeah.
I know the high school golf team goes for free. And anybody under 13 is also free. 14 to 18 is at a reduced price, and above 18 is full price.
What do they ever bring the tournament to our course, or they just play the SBR?
No, actually Rick's working on a tournament to be played over here. To be a golf team fundraiser. And then I've got the American Legion coming on September 11th.
So when you say golf team fundraiser, they're doing it for their funds at the high school.
There'll be a fee, they're not going to get it for free. The golfers, I think we pay $100 for that tournament per player, 100 or 120 for the high school fundraiser. They haven't gotten back to me on that. I've played the last couple of years, video.
And sorry, going back to workforce solutions, but like even Parks and Rec, like if you guys needed high school age kids during the summer.
Well, they have the summer youth programs. I do know I used to utilize those all the time when I worked for the county. And that's how I brought a lot of summer employees to work for me, so.
Is Carol still being the HR? Or do we have HR?
No, I'm procurement officer.
Okay. So we need to get with our HR, and HR and the Human Workforce Solutions person needs to become best friends and have lunch 3 times a day or week. Maybe not a day. A week, sorry, I'm thinking about lunch. A week, and they need to bowl on Fridays, and we need them to buddy up so we can be utilizing those Workforce Solution dollars everywhere we can.
I know Liz has a lot of great ideas, so it's just a matter of time and training.
We don't have time.
We have to grow our HR director just like we do for every position we hire.
Yes.
Thank you. Kyle, were you done?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Bo? Time to wake up. Time to wake up.
You don't have any more money, Bo. That's the problem.
I think we can look at some of our utility fees, like our, say, when we go out to the meter, it's still 1909. That's been 1909 for a year.
Since
1909. For electric and water, that's 1909. They're using dollars in them.
I mean, co-op charges what, $25. Yeah, that needs to be looked at.
And then the general year, too, for electric. we only charge $8. I know Sierra Electric charges 25, but I mean, we could go somewhere in between there.
The AMI, I believe all of them have that 1976 15 meter that they're not north of them. Now our revenues are going up with our AMI meters. They are reading all the electricity that's being used correctly now. All the more mechanical meters were wore out. They were put in back in the 70s, 80s, and anyway, I think we did a good job on that. Our estimates that we make for when we do services, I'm sure water and electric departments the same way. When we make an estimate to do work for a customer or even a commercial property, our rates are those old school, $45 for a truck, $25 for one person to do work. We need to go up on them rates, I think.
Why are those rates not reflective of what we're paying and our costs?
See, that's what we need to work on.
And that's the same thing with the district.
Yeah.
You can just go with that flat rate.
We should be able to get those numbers from our budget, and then those should just be plug-in numbers from whatever our employee is, our rate, our truck fee, including our fleet maintenance. All of that should just be a plug-in number, right?
What we
I'm
found
like,
is we're probably undervaluing staff hours, and we're definitely undervaluing equipment. So the contract we have with Williamsburg, like some of our heavy equipment is $35 an hour. We can't start that thing for $35 an hour. It's considerably more. Those are the things that we've got to work out. Particularly roads, the street department, Danny and I have been talking about that for a couple of weeks. We got to get those things in line with what it's truly costing us. If you rent it, it's X dollars. We should be very close to that. We're not asking for the profit portion of it, just what it's costing us. And ultimately, all those hours add up, and the equipment's got to be replaced.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
And then Bruce was also talking about doing a rate study. Our electrical rates have not gone up in years. Not with that rate study looked at.
Can we fix our bills though before we do that, please?
Yeah.
Because there was some man that called and said, I pay more in pass-through fees than I do for my electric. And I'm like, it's the same.
What's that? I didn't hear you.
So that's what they passed down to us.
Right.
We just need to figure out how to combine that into, because people, I mean, if you have been here forever and lived the pain, you understand. But if we have so many new people coming through, they just don't understand what that pass-through is.
Speaking of the utility bills, we have a number of folks that are substantially behind in their utilities. And last week, 500 and some odd letters went out.
Yeah.
So the letters go out, giving them 30 days, letting them know that we're going to send them to collections in 30 days. So we're getting that in line. We can go back up to 4 years, and we'll be out 4 years to talk letters. We can't touch it. Well, you got to start somewhere.
Right.
So this 4-year period is.
Have we gotten any more money from the people that are behind?
I sent Bruce some numbers, and I don't have them with me, but I did like a actual receipt that utility office has taken in from April 1st to July 30th of last year compared to this year, and we've taken in $500,000 more this year than we did last year.
And then all the,
We have been.
and then all the people that, many of the people, I would say, are also on payment plans, so they're getting caught up in the rears. There's no exceptions other than these folks that are going to go to collections if they don't get with the office and get on the plan.
Thank you. Thank you, Bo. Appreciate you.
How much money
Go ahead.
more can you spare, Bo? How much more can you spare?
But the people that are getting sent to collections, their electricity is off. Just making sure.
So, Mayor, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to Mayor Pro Tem Commissioners about all the revenue streams. We threw out a lot of ideas, and I don't want it to appear as a frenzy on revenue. However, we'll take what we've heard today, shore up some ideas, and report back to the commission in the not too distant future. Although I have to say, we need to act soon.
Soon, yeah. And I hope that we'll take that into consideration and work on it fast. OJ, did you have any other questions?
Our recommendations for fees and things of that nature, do they need to go through our boards first? Do we need to discuss that, or are we at a point where we just?
I don't think they should go through the boards. I think that they should just be a plan of action and ideas and thoughts, go through Bruce, bring them to Bruce, and then Bruce will bring them, or you all will bring them to the commission.
Madam Mayor, I know this is Bruce's ultimate call, but I don't think the commission needs to sit here for the rest of the day, and I know you had scheduled an entire day, and I believe that the staff probably had the entire day cleared for this meeting as well. But it sounds like everyone has their thinking caps on, and everyone is coming up with ideas, and I love how you guys are so willing to help each other, and everyone is brainstorming across the board. And I think it may be the opportune time to sit down with a pen and paper and, you know, jot down the things we can tackle immediately. And that way, raising those rates from 1909, you know, I think that within 2 hours, you guys can probably come back and know that it should cost us $30 a meter instead of 19. I think that, you know, a brief break, you guys can hammer those numbers out, and it may be a week's time or whatever, but I think we should be able to see this on an agenda, a lot of these ideas on an agenda in 2 weeks, and not in a month.
Chief Tully, you were the only one. Do you have any comments,
Felicia.
Questions, or?
I was expecting $1 million.
Well,
Bo doesn't have it. We asked.
We thought you had it. That's why we left you for last.
We have quite a bit. They've been another truck. We paid cash for that new ladder truck, $780,000. It's no cost to the city.
Me hear ya.
We did get a reduction. I got with the state fire marshal's office. We already have a reduction this year. It's not a whole lot. It's about $17,000 in our case. But we still have enough money that we're rolling over. We are going after another grant next month for $300,000 to replace another truck. So what we are working with Bruce is a administrative fee that we did have when I was at the county, which is also an administrative fee here to help. We can get some revenue back. We can't just take fire funds and give it to the city. So there are some administrative fees that can be applied to the fire department that the city can, we can take those, get those back.
About $1 million a year?
We're down 17 grand, but we're in very good financial shape going into next year as far as our fire funds.
Thank you, sir.
Maybe.
Appreciate you. Carol.
I want to remind everybody that, you know, these departments that we're thinking about with Williamsburg, they probably set their budgets for the year, so it may be a little difficult. I mean, budgets change, they always change, but, you know, we have to keep that in mind as well. Yes, we would like to charge them more,
But again, this is a plan, and plans don't come together overnight. Plans take a while sometimes. And so this is something that we as the commission, we as the department heads, we as the community are looking at doing. And so once we have our plan of action together, then we can sit down with these entities and let them know that this is what we're looking at, and give them that opportunity to decide, do you want to stay on board, or do you want to go jump ship and go someplace else?
Right.
You know, even though you present, well, we're going to do this today, they may not want to. They may not have the money. So every plan takes time, but we want to start when we walk out these doors at ideas and thoughts and processes. And if you have questions, you know, we're open to calls, or you can call the manager and he can reach out to us. Whatever needs to be happened to make this work, and to make this work and go forward with it instead of jumping back. Okay, we don't want to go one step forward and 10 back. We want to continue to move forward and figure out, you know, we're living in the 21st century. People have to understand that, you know, we're still a little town, we're still a little retirement area, but it does cost us. You know, we don't want to run everybody out and be a ghost town, but we want to make a living, and we want to know that our employees are doing the best that they can, and we appreciate that. And in no shape or form do they have any reason to feel that this is their fault, because this isn't. This is a community. This is, you know, a fault that we can fix. So let's just do that. Commissioner Aragon, I know you had a comment.
Just one last thing. You know, once we fix this issue, we need to keep this thing going on an annual basis. I've seen cities that have an ordinance that has every single fee on there, and it's adjusted every year. We don't need to get back in this position again, and this is what happened over many, many years. So, Bruce, I'll keep that in mind.
Thank you. Manager?
We can meet back here at 1:30, everyone have a lunch.
Minus the commission?
Minus the commissioners, right?
Not commission.
Okay.
I think your time's been taken. We talked about a lot, now it's time for us to kind of give some marching orders to various folks.
But again, jot down everything. I mean, and if there's something that you think about during lunch, bring it back and jot it down. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, we think of, we go to plan B. But I know that you guys know and are competent enough to do what you need to do to make us continue to work. And thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion made by Commissioner Aragon and Francis seconded the motion.
Yep.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.